All right, hello. Ooh, it's weird to see my face in the vertical stream, but I'm getting used to it. We're trying to expand here. How do I center myself? Go this way? Yeah, I'm mirrored, so it's a little confusing. Happy to see y'all on the vertical stream. You know, we're trying to grow this channel. We're trying some new things. You know, we've tried scuff streams, which I'm doing both at the same time today. We're just gonna do the vertical, try to narrow in on that format. I'm just gonna dive right into it. Let's bring my guests to the show. We're gonna have Torsha, Melanie, and Jake on. Start off with introducing Torsha. Hey,
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you? I hate intros. God damn it. How are you?
Well, we'll keep yours short and sweet if that's okay. We can
Okay,
introduce Melanie. I'm gonna introduce you last because I knew you have an intro story you want to go into. Hey, Jake, welcome to the stream.
Hello. I love intros. My name's Jake. I'm a big ham. No, it's good to see y'all. My channel's what you can do.
And Melanie, hello.
Hello, I'm Melanie Scarlett, streamer and debater. Well, not as much of a streamer as much of a debater. But anyways, I had a cold open prepared for us, but here's my story now. I said to Princess, hey, Princess, let's start with a cold open where I talk about what I was doing right before this.
Now it's a warm open, I guess. Shit.
Yeah, it's okay. No, it still is an interesting discussion. I will just hop right into it as long as everyone's cool with that. I was on John Galt's stream, and we were talking hurricane disaster relief. And someone said something really interesting to me, which is that Republicans do the most for disaster relief. And my main question for them is, how does the party of fiscal responsibility suddenly change their dogma and overpower the Democrats, who will tax the middle class and rich to get their spending? And let me tell you, they could not wrap their minds around that basic logic. It was beautiful.
Well, you're not working with the sharpest tools, and
I disagree. I think that you'll find smarter than average Black conservatives there. They're worth talking to, but not everyone there is good at giving people space.
I will go there just to talk to conservatives who have sincere beliefs. I find it very, very difficult.
And they're going 24/7. I've sent you there already, Jake.
No, you did. You did.
Have you been on there, Jake?
No, but I'm going to. I love that. I also just love their concept for a channel. Y'all know I love those who are out there experimenting 24/7, and they keep it going.
I'd be down to break up our streams into 6-hour shifts. I'll even do the graveyard shift that nobody wants.
I hate to make you
unless you want it,
because I know you'll all want to do this with me. But John Galt also wants me to do a show on his channel, or like a segment, or a shift on his 24-hour stream.
I'm already
maybe.
I'm already lining myself up for that. To be honest, I think I'm going to do like a tech show for him.
Let's shatter the fourth wall and just have a stream where other streamers are trying to woo you and get you onto their stream process. We're just like, all right, here's what I have to offer. Absolutely no money, but a whole lot of gratitude.
Speaking of which, and I'm just saying this to actually help ease your burden, since I'm already coding graphics, what you did there is so in line with what I've been doing with my backgrounds and stuff already. I know it doesn't look very complex. I'm just trying to keep it simple so it always works. But I'm starting to do C++, and that could be easier for you to start using if you use Windows on your side. If you trust me, send you the executable and or whatever.
Are you talking to Jake or me? I'm confused.
You, Princess, because you did the background.
Oh.
Your background at the beginning was like, that was stellar, man. Like that. So much was the aesthetic that I like doing.
From a very obscure video that I know. That was none of our. See, the credits were at the bottom. If you could see it, it's credited to the original artist.
I'm an idiot.
That was not my own work.
Well, I
Shout
was
out
just
to
blown away by it.
Paper Rad as the artist collective that made that video.
I will
but enough
code
of that.
graphics for you. I can even do web browser graphics. Anyways, go ahead.
I mean, I do need more graphics. We'll do that. We have so many shows. Speaking of that, maybe you could do an intro for the dating show. But actually, I want to say this because Jake reminded me of something. I want to do this with a couple individuals, but I mean, if we can do it for myself, I would love to do that also. I want to do a new kind of dating show where, I mean, I love our current dating show. We'll do that. I want to do, I even pitched this to Ruby, where we got Ruby and 10 guys try to battle out for Ruby's love. And it'll be like every 20 minutes, we'll like do an elimination. So,
Yes.
until there's
I'm
one
so
person
in.
remaining. And
That's a great idea.
And get this, I can even make some intro music just for us to play around with and experiment with for any shows, but for the dating show, because the last thing I have to teach myself are melodic modes. I've learned all the key signatures, wraparounds and stuff like that. It's gotten really fun, but I'm starting to get bored because that's all I do every day now. So I need to learn my melodic modes and actually start writing music.
Fair. That sounds. First of all, the songs sound lovely, and second of all, I love that this has potential for the fellas to try to sabotage each other. Ooh.
No, what?
With the Ruby and 10 guys trying, and there's an
elimination
process.
Okay, sorry.
Even if I don't wind
keep
up
it on track.
it,
Keep it on track.
I just want this to be in our collective. Okay.
Keep in mind for I'll make sure you're first in line to sign up. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
But yeah, if we can get 10 women, maybe they can compete for my love. That's what I was trying to say. I was trying to push it onto me. But that's enough of that. Let's actually get to what we're talking about. Thanks, Torsia, for rewriting my amazing stream title. Can you remind me, what is the new title, Torsia?
Fuck, it is.
I know it's good.
True.
It's better than my original one.
Gamergate is back, and it's worse than you think.
No.
True. I mean,
What the hell is Gamergate?
You might say
first
never
of all,
left.
let me just preface this by asking and making sure, so I don't just bloviate the whole time about my experiences. None of you, and sorry about my sirens, none of you have heard of a streamer called Tachyon Blue, have you?
No.
I don't think so.
He's been in Gamergate for so freaking long. Like he, was part of making sites and stuff like that. He almost infiltrated like the debate sphere on like Twitch for a while, but he only really got in with like a lol cow, and then she got laughed at and laughed out of the room. So that whole thing, I because I was hanging around and criticizing the streamer who everyone else was laughing at the time because she was pretty awful. I interacted with him as he infiltrated that same space. Then we talked about doing some stuff. I interviewed with him once or maybe even twice, I forget at this point. But then I literally got to the point where I'm like, he's only doing Gamergate content. And he says he's going to write a book. And then he's like, okay, you're going to be the last person I interview. So you get the last say because I think you have the strongest voice. And then he interviews literally 20 more people after that. And he's still interviewing people. So I don't think he's going to write his book. I think he just wants to keep talking about Gamergate forever because that's the only thing he can grift off at this point.
Ugh.
A lot of people on the internet seem to be doing that. In fact, our final reactions, we're going to react to a debate later. Some people are accusing one of the debaters maybe grifting, maybe going to some arguments they aren't necessarily truly backing him. But before we get into that, and Millie, I do want to know what your personal take is. I want to preface this because I'm a little bit too online. I need to touch grass here and there. But I'm not sure everyone here knows what Gamergate is, so I just want to rehash it for little people. I would say Gamergate was a controversial online movement that emerged back in the heyday, 2014. Seems like forever nowadays. Primarily focused around the video game industry, around journalism and culture. I kind of take a balanced approach to it because I think there are definitely a couple of different viewpoints. Like a lot of stuff online, maybe like the red pill. I think kind of depending on who you're asked, you're going to get a lot of different answers about when you ask what is this, and even I think similarly, a lot of people have taken it from I think it originally stood for, and have kind of used it like for grifting as well. So that's something I want to add. But before I get into the both kind of the arguments of both sides, just a little bit more about the origin and the timeline. Gamergate began back in August 2014. I think one of the originating events was when the developer Zoe Quinn had some involvement with someone that was in the that was a journalist at a gaming. Let me just read this out loud. Julius Quinn's ex-boyfriend published a blog alleging Quinn had an intimate relationship with a video game journalist. This sparked online discussion about ethics in game journalism and quickly escalated into a larger controversy. Does anyone want to add anything before I kind of get into? I want to kind of both sides.
Yes,
both
actually.
Go ahead.
So
Please.
I downloaded and listened to in entirety Zoe Quinn's book Crash Override, which talks all about this from her perspective. And I think, it's easy so I've heard Tachyon do this a lot, where he kind of glosses over what these poor women experience as a result of this for simply being feminists, if we're being honest. Zoe Quinn, the way this started wasn't because Zoe Quinn was a feminist, but the years of, outlash she faced afterwards was definitely part of that, and victim blaming and the whole kind of defending that culture of sexually harassing women. The only way I think, it's possible to actually see things from both perspectives, because believe me, the Gamergate guys are loud and proud about their emotions on the internet, is to hear the books that have been written on both sides and how different the narratives are between victim and victimizer.
Yep. I'm trying to remain a little bit more neutral, but I definitely don't disagree. Does anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah. Let me just speak over the lady who has had a chance to talk. No, Torsia, did you have something?
No.
Then I do want to add something. I feel
We're just
like
getting the guest treatment. It's Jake. Do not tell the
right.
host how to do his show, okay?
Yes, ma'am. I feel like it makes it seem like to the outsider looking in, it seems like it's scumbags versus feminists. And the sad thing is, the reality is it's just scumbags versus everybody else. And everybody else doesn't normally pay enough attention to care. But the stuff the feminists are saying is just, treating people like people. It's kind of what they're always saying. It's sad that the video game community has been sullied by the loud mouths of the worst people that enjoy video games.
Torsia, what do you think? What do you think so far? Because I know you didn't know too much about Gamergate before today. What are your kind of initial thoughts so far? We'll get more into it for sure.
Yeah, still just unclear. I don't have anything to add yet.
Maybe this will clear some up, because I think I'm definitely leaning more toward where Melanie and Jake are coming from. But I want to kind of give both arguments. I think the proponents' claim would be that the Gamergate supporters are kind of arguing that they want improved ethics in video game journalism. They are protecting their gamer identity, as cringe as that may be. They're opposing a perceived political correctness in video games. They've come to express these concerns about the close relationships between game developers and journalists, as well as the influences of priceless social issues on video game reviews and development. Again, just reading this, I'm not saying give my stance. I think the other perspective, I think this might more align with where Melanie and Jake are coming from. The critics' perspective would be that the critics of Gamergate view it more as a misogynistic harassment campaign targeted at women in the gaming industry. That there's a backlash against diversity and feminism in video game culture, and a movement using ethics concerns as a cover of for harassment. Does that sound pretty accurate?
I mean, I still don't know what came out or what the drama was. It's still
Sure.
unclear.
May I explain? Do you have that process?
I do have a 60-second video that I wanted to cover. That being said, I think this one might not be. It might be able to lean toward one direction.
Before we proceed with the seriousness, can I just point out an observation that's going to really ruin my reputation? I now am fixated on Melanie's avatar's very serious face.
Exactly. It's cute but serious.
Yeah. So as these serious things are being said, it's cracking me up.
Could I show the Gamergate community that I can at least describe what happened in a neutral way about Zoe Quinn?
Yeah, do so, and we'll see how much this aligns with the video. And again, as I said, because I watched this video before, it's a little bit leaning toward one direction. Go ahead.
So I think that the important thing about Zoe Quinn's story is to remember that it's about accusations that she had sex with other journalists to get favorable reviews for her independent game. So, of course, Gamergaters are arguing that this creates an unfair standard in the video game ethics industry if you can get reviews for sex. However, Quinn denies this, and there seems to have been evidence that this is just false. And so critics argue that that these are often claims of, these are accusations, especially lobbed at victims, of doing things that just there doesn't seem to be a paper trail, especially when you look at like the indie game industry and how just unlikely that is that people would sleep for favors.
And I gotta say, it's pretty telling how I'm trying to be neutral, but I gotta be honest. I really am more aligned with the critics and the Melanie and the Jakes here, where I can't really see as their true aim being like a journalistic integrity, because they seem to be going way more after the developer of the game than the journalists themselves. I feel like that was really your intention, to be like kind of criticize the journalists a little bit more,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Anyways,
that makes
this
it lean
video.
toward it's a shame man woman kind of thing. But yeah, let's see what this hashtag Gamergate in 60 seconds has to say about this. Again, this is a 9-year-old topic, is like a 9-year-old video, so there might be some more updates soon to come.
Gamergate is a consumer boycott and a call for ethics reform in game industry media. Evidence comes up that a writer at Kotaku gave a game favorable coverage because of a relationship he had. Kotaku says that this isn't true. More evidence comes up proving otherwise, and people demand he gets fired. Adam Baldwin shows support by creating the Twitter hashtag Gamergate. In response, Kotaku and many other sites published 14 different articles, all saying the same thing: gamers are dead, all in the same day. Readers declare a boycott on these sites and begin contacting their advertisers. To fight the stereotype, the hashtag #NotYourShield is made because minorities like myself hate having game journalists pretend to speak for us, especially since some of them are racist. Reddit's r/Gaming starts censoring all forms of Gamergate discussion. Even 4chan censors Gamergate. This leads to a mass migration to a much better website. Feminist scholar Christina Summers releases a video debunking the idea that video games make people sexist. Game sites call her a conservative. She's a Democrat. Milo Yiannopoulos leaks emails from a private Google group called Game Journals Pro, proving that game journalists collude to
God, I haven't heard a lot of these names in like 6 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man,
They were so big back in the day. Online, at least,
Yeah,
So,
no mention of Zoe
Rob
Quinn.
Schultz-
Sorry. Just
Sure,
real
yeah.
quick, no
More
mention
shit
of Sarkeesian either, who was a huge part of it.
I think they might be coming out. They're still 6.
Not wanting to associate with such hacks, one by one advertisers start to pull out, with the latest one being
I'm a loving the old lion.
Is that everything?
yeah, I think so.
face and remind
Amazing video. Amazing. Definitely wasn't
Gotta be
filler.
honest.
60 seconds long, not necessarily the most accurate description. I do have another video I want to show. I just want to kind of show that quick description first. And also,
So
I want to show one side of it before we go into the other side. Go ahead, Mel.
were you planning on showing a feminist frequency video, or could I quickly explain what they did?
I was going to do a Now This video where I think they're going to talk more about that end, and as well as like another interview
Okay.
with Brianna Wu. So, yeah,
I'll look at the
Can
docket
touch on
then. I'm sorry. I'll stop asking these questions.
no worries. Because I agree, that wasn't the most fair and accurate representation of it. So I want to get a little bit more into it. Also, this next video I'm going to go into is from 3 years ago. So kind of like further down the timeline.
Yeah.
They sent me a series of threats that was so serious that law enforcement got involved, and I actually fled my home for several days. This is costing people's lives.
The topic of discussion today is Gamergate.
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 Gamergate was the harbinger of kind of the culture wars we're seeing every single day.
Between sci-fi blockbusters and billion-dollar video games, nerd culture has exploded out of the basement. And thanks to social media, the barriers between culture and fandom have shattered. This can lead to a deeper connection with the content we consume, but it comes with a cost. As the internet brought diverse new fans to the boys' club of nerddom, A reactionary movement arose to keep women and marginalized people away from their fan communities. This online culture war has caught real people in the crossfire. What is fueling this misogynistic nerd rage? Why are they targeting marginalized creators with organized harassment campaigns? And what kind of damage have they done?
I will let it keep playing, but I just want to mention how it's interesting how, again, this is a little bit further down the timeline, in how they're going to get into Gamergate with kind of, they're also talking about how like this kind of branches out into larger nerd culture in general, and just culture, I'd say, in general.
I also disavow
but-
Brianna Wu, but for other reasons.
I see. Does anyone else want to add anything before I keep playing the video?
Just that Melanie loves Brianna Wu.
Huge fan.
Huge fan.
Oh, sorry.
You
Yeah,
just
I
wanna-
meant
you don't wanna-
avow,
you
not
don't wanna-
disavow.
you want a fan
All
out.
right, Jake.
Gamergate is just one symptom of a larger trend that's tearing online communities apart. And to understand Gamergate, you need to understand how fan culture turned toxic.
Fandom, like any group setting with a bunch of people, is going to have a dark side. It's human nature to sort of gang up on people and attack them.
Thanks to the internet.
Do you have something to add there, Jake?
Oh, just great B-roll for
I do.
fandom's going to have a dark side.
If they're gonna sort of like prime this with I think they're gonna call it toxic fandom. Is that correct?
They definitely go into like the Marvel, Star Wars, and like the more nerdy parts of that. Yeah.
So what I've seen actually in the research is that they study something instead called toxic geek masculinity, which is a subset of toxic masculinity, but less like physically aggressive and more kind of like verbally and psychologically aggressive, because they're in a video game.
And that makes sense because at least previously those were all like kind of domains that I feel like are more controlled by men. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, actually, if I could recap what this is so far, because I feel like it's a lot's going by fast, a lot of B-rolls of video game controllers. Here's the deal. One gaming journalist reviewed a game made by a lady. There was an accusation, whether credible or not, that they had a relationship together, and that relationship affected that video game journalist's review of the game. And that set off a broader discussion that was incredibly stupid about whether or not girls have cooties. Essentially, that's what it is.
LOL.
I think it's not too inaccurate, I'll be honest.
Actually, I feel like in hindsight, I should close up what I was saying before. The reason why this matters, because I don't think that fandoms are inherently toxic. And this is kind of like let people be more subjective in what they blame for this. But the real blame is when you have like these echo chambers of young men who get together and, they have every reason to be anti-feminist. This is kind of the culture that Gamergate played on.
Yeah.
George, you look a little confused. Any questions or anything we can clarify?
No, just waiting.
We're still learning a lot. And yeah, because I think you're kind of saying this. I don't think it's something that's necessarily like intrinsic to these kind of spaces. It's more so, I think this is where this is the first place these manifested, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially online, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've played many an hour of D&D and video game and what have you, and none of these punks would have been holding those opinions at my table. I thank you for sticking up for the dorks.
Actually, small bit of history. It wasn't even feminist. It was just in coding, because coders were like the first people in this space. There were women who complained more in like magazines and stuff like that about online culture and being pushed out, even though they were coders who could code just as well as all the boys.
Yeah.
And just being treated like they weren't qualified, being kind of expected to be a doormat and stuff.
Oh my God.
But it didn't really break out into anything near the scale of Gamergate, at least.
We're a disappointing species.
When there's so much like, 'cause again, Gamergate, this was like 9 years ago. I think it's also really different looking back in hindsight, where like now we know like about all the shitty stuff that's going down at Blizzard, and how there women in that workplace are being treated very, very unfairly, to the extent where I think people got hurt, and I think someone even might have themselves because of.
Well, arguably, it needed to be
really bad.
Yeah, when people were writing about that in the magazine, it's arguably like a shame that it wasn't more of a feminist movement, if anything, that resulted from that. And it took until Gamergate before that even really seemed to start, or pre-Gamergate, but gaming culture.
All right, but let's get back to it. Let's learn a little bit more about what it is. But I want to say, Jake, that was a really good kind of bringing back what this all was about, because I said that really quickly in the beginning, but that was like the core of the issue.
I'm sorry, I just
spun out of control.
I'm sorry, just the priming they're doing really bothered me, because I know that Gamergaters like to say like, oh, well, you just oppose like people enjoying stuff. Not like that simply, but they'll imply that, and it'll be because of stuff like this that leaves the narrative open to like, is it the fan culture or is it like masculine spaces, that masculine oriented spaces?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Torsha. I'm so sorry.
For what?
You're waiting, so I just felt bad for keeping you waiting.
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay, cool.
We'll get into it.
And the breakout success of Marvel's cinematic universe, the overwhelmingly male world of nerd culture suddenly belonged to everyone. Most fans embraced the new wave of women, queer, and otherwise marginalized members in their communities, but a vocal minority chose to gatekeep their geekery instead. It goes without saying that women are integral to science fiction, since the day 20-year-old Mary Shelley invented the genre with Frankenstein. But 200 years later, thousands of angry fans have suddenly decided that they didn't belong, not even the biggest franchise of them all, Star Wars. The backlash began in 1999 with the release of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Fans wasted no time mocking their targets, particularly Ahmed Best, the black actor who portrayed Jar Jar Binks. The actor endured decades of derision from fans during the early days of the internet. The attacks on Ahmed were so severe that it nearly drove him to take his own life.
I was really just crumbling inside.
There's a sense of ownership.
Sorry, I gotta jump in here. This is where I firstly have like maybe a little bit of pushback, because I imagine there were I got some worse comments, but also like I like Star Wars. I grew up like hating the prequel films. I thought Jar Jar Binks was an awful character. I know who played Jar Jar Binks. I was like, but I would have made fun of Jar Jar Binks very easily on the internet. But I know who was behind the mask, so to speak.
I'm sure Warwick Davis caught hell for playing an Ewok back in the day. He just had the good fortune to go on and do other movies that people loved, like Willow. Ahmed Best, unfortunately, hasn't got that opportunity. He did a hell of a good job playing a bad character that nobody likes. But that's not a culture thing. It's just a bad writing thing.
I just want to like kind of pat myself on the back for being ahead of the curve on this and arguing that Jar Jar is an essential comedic relief character, similar to Chewbacca. And you have to watch the series in order from episode 1 to episode 6.
Chewbacca's not comic relief.
Otherwise, you don't get the subterfuge and self-containment of Jar Jar.
When he is on the screen, am I pleased or annoyed? That is the question. That's all that matters. It is a movie for entertainment. You know what? I'm derailing us.
It's for entertainment.
We're going to have this debate.
And some people find it more entertaining when you don't when you're not in your back of your mind comparing it to Chewbacca first.
I will tie this back to what someone said earlier. I think this gets a little tricky because there is a very small, very loud minority online that I think kind of paints a lot of these narratives. And it gets tricky because someone like myself who's like, oh yeah, that movie just sucks. I don't like it. It has nothing with it like trying to be woke or anything. Like it's hard to have that opinion when like there's all these people like saying, oh no, it's really bad because it's woke. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to get tied with that. No,
opinion. We know you have it because you're racist. You can't hide it no matter how much you say.
Jar Jar Binks because
I'm changing my stance. I think all women have cooties now.
Just admit you're part of Gamergate already.
Yeah, I am now. And now I'm on Gamergate.
No, you convinced me.
By a very small group of people where they were the star of the show back in 1977, when Star Wars first came out, you see both the minimization of the importance of that story for other people, and you also see like this endless harassing of the people that are telling that story.
No lessons were learned by the time of the Star Wars sequel trilogy in 2015. When the first trailers revealed that the main characters would be Rey, a capable young woman, and Finn, a Black ex-stormtrooper, most fans were excited about the potential broad...
Oh yeah, because I do want to touch on this. I should clarify. Yeah, I think George Lucas might have like some racist things. Like if you look at all of his like Asian, if you look at all like the aliens, they all like have like almost racist Asian accents. It's really weird in hindsight.
They're just one step away from guys walking around like this. They're super racist.
Counter argument: 1999. We didn't know it was wrong yet.
No, yeah, I don't hold it against George Lucas. He wasn't trying to be racist. He lived in racist times.
And technically, he tones it down by giving Jar Jar a role in the Senate.
Yeah, and he evolves as a human being, but it's just a statement of fact that some of that stuff hurts to watch.
I don't know if he evolves as a human. He helps the Sith.
No, George Lucas.
Oh, George. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like
in
it
hindsight,
wasn't hard for him to be like,
look.
oh, is that racist? That was super racist.
Oh yeah, it doesn't age well. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to address that because I mean, I love Star Wars films, but I can even not gonna admit like a little cringy in hindsight.
By a cast of new faces, but a vocal contingent went on the attack immediately, decrying the forced diversity of the new trilogy.
Almost 40 years, we've taken one kind of person and made them the center of the world and catered to their every single whim and not really represented other people. So as we're having, societal change where we're showing other kinds of people as the heroes, there are a lot of people that generally, they feel like something has been stolen.
I'm sorry. Sam Cedar talked about that years ago, and it's so effing true. You have to understand that for like my whole life growing up, every single hero, white man, looked just like me. And to have that change, if you are, and this is crucial to understand, a big baby is very scary. If all you think of yourself is white and man, and you haven't accomplished anything else, you have to think of those things as an accomplishment. That is very scary. I'm glad to see them addressing that as like an understanding of the cause.
But it's also like because of the male gaze, we see a lot of men act entitled to things. Like I'm entitled to women. I'm entitled to be pretty much any space I want to. Any rights that these people get is a loss of mine kind of thing. I think it's a double-edged sword kind of thing that we're talking about. But I don't know how useful that is.
Well, I don't understand it, but I look forward to looking it over with you.
I do want to keep on track, but I do want to talk about the representation thing for a little bit because, I wonder how has this always been an issue? Like, was there a huge backlash when like Aliens came out and like Ripley was like a badass? Like when Kill Bill came out in the 2000s, like I don't think people were like, oh my god, a strong female who's beating up like in the Kill Bill, like she literally beats up like 100 people. Like people were like, oh my god, so unrealistic.
It was 54.
But now everyone like has like to go like analyze like every film like this, then like this realistic lens where it's like, oh, that woman couldn't drop kick that guy. That's so unrealistic.
It really like feminist frequency coming out and actually listing out the tropes made a big difference on people's awareness and thus like the reactionary backlash.
Maybe we'll get into this later, but I do think sometimes sometimes they would use false tropes or stuff. Like I remember like this like Hitman episode where like they're like, oh, you had to like kill this woman for this mission. Like that was like not really true or something. But
well, just because the examples were false doesn't mean the tropes were false. Right?
We'll get into that. There was somewhere I'm like, again, that was again 10 years ago. I had to refresh my memory, but let's get back into what Brianna Wu was saying.
From them.
They directed their anger at Kelly Marie Tran, the first woman of color to hold a major on-screen role in the Star Wars franchise.
A lot of fans who kind of had racist and sexist inclinations were able to band together and drive her off social media platforms.
From Ghostbusters' Leslie Jones to Captain Marvel's Brie Larson, fans are using social media to attack the actors who dared to be women in beloved sci-fi franchises, using tactics they learned from the most devastating online hate campaign in history, Gamergate.
It's been a big year for esports.
60% of teenagers play video games. They're playing on average 3.5 hours per day.
Esports is real. It's a billion-dollar industry. 200 million people are watching other people play video games.
Video games are big business, and just like with comics and sci-fi, it's not just for guys anymore.
They're damsels in distress. I'm saving the princess. Am I supposed to let the princess die? Is that what you want? That's kind of harsh. That's kind of hostile.
Well, maybe the princess shouldn't be a damsel and she could save herself.
If you look at the original Nintendo Entertainment System, there are a shockingly few number of games where you can even play as a woman. We kind of have this stereotype about games being for teenage boys. It's just not true today.
Women make up 46% of people who play video games, and within the male-dominated industry, women and LGBTQ+ developers are fighting to make the industry more inclusive. Tensions in the gaming community boiled until they exploded in August of 2014.
What happened during Gamergate is you saw a lot of factions of different types of game consumers band together, sometimes in really toxic and abusive ways, against people that were perceived as destroying the gaming culture. Because of that, you had a lot of people who staunchly believed in the Gamergate movement, as it was called, coming together to harass and attack.
So from the beginning, Gamergate supporters have claimed that this is about journalistic ethics and about supposed corruption in the gaming industry, but it has originated as, and it's continued to be, about sort of undermining women in the gaming industry.
This was the spark that ignited a coordinated movement to attack marginalized developers, activists, and journalists in the gaming industry under the dubious guise of ethics in games journalism. Gamergate organized on the same underground message boards that would later lead to the QAnon cult. They sent their fans to attack developers like Zoe Quinn, Brianna Wu, and others like them.
I realized that the game industry press wasn't going to cover what was happening to women. So when the New York Times and the Boston Globe asked what was happening.
Just because I think we got another small recap of what kind of Gamergate is. I'm just checking on Torsia. Are things starting to come together? Are they starting to paint a picture?
Yeah, I'm listening to stuff and reading stuff on the side.
It is confusing because it's like in some ways it's a very complex issue. In some ways you can also say it's like very simple.
And it never went away. Sorry.
Are we going to be getting into I'm looking at your Google Doc, like each person specifically, so I know.
Why doesn't Tom Fuller just come on?
Yeah, Tom, you want the link? You want to join? I didn't pin the link. I wanted to keep it to just us, but.
Right. Yeah. I'm not saying make it open, but he's a streamer.
Like I'm confused about what sparked it, because like the Google Doc, not really sure. The videos, it's not really clear to me. Like who's upset?
The spark was that initial incident that Jake said earlier. I think one second, because I just had this earlier.
Zoe Quinn, yeah.
Yeah.
But in particular,
so that
it sounds like an ex-boyfriend of Quinn's published a blog post alleging that Quinn had an intimate relationship with a game journalist and that led to her getting a favorable review. So that was the initial spark.
It true?
No.
I think no one...
It seems incredibly unlikely that
wait, do you have the post?
Like they were in the relationship.
There's no way to
was he like jealous or something?
Either way. But
I'm sorry? What?
I would guess there's no way to there's probably not enough evidence to prove 100% either way.
Okay.
But Mel, you want to give your take?
It's kind of weird for him to post that.
I mean, one of the
it's his blog,
definitely.
Did he give her name and stuff?
Oh yeah,
people knew who this couple was, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, because of her ex-boyfriend.
Got it. Okay. Keep going. What were you gonna say?
So sorry, just let me regain my thoughts for a half a second. One of the most important things to remember is that there's a lot of anti-left undertones. They would call us SJWs. And when you look at splinter kind of groups that broke off in the internet, like on Reddit, something called Kotaku in Action sprung up because a site called Kotaku is a game journalism site. And they were like kind of in that start of like we're talking about ethics and game journalism and stuff timeline. That's where actually Tachyon comes from, if I recall correctly. With the point being that this thing with Zoe Quinn probably, and I think she even says this in her book, if I'm again recalling correctly, so don't quote me on it, that this would have kind of tailed off, except it reignited at like the next chance, and that was either Brianna Wu or Anita Sarkeesian and Feminist Frequency posting tropes in gaming.
I think there's also an incident where like multiple gaming journalists, blog club sites like made a bunch of anti-gamer articles in a short period of time. Let me double check on that. I think that was also one of the initial events as well.
Okay.
The very broad strokes are that initial incident with the controversy over
that was
whether or
the
not it
first
was
thing.
an earnest review of a video game, something that small.
That created the initial kind of culture.
Hashtag, and that became a hashtag that scumbags gathered around for the purposes of just essentially canceling women anytime they appeared in anything.
And so it's not every single space was like the most toxic, like anti-feminist, but certain groups acted more as like filters where if you were anti-feminist and if you were particularly like a toxic gamer, that's the kind of group you would go to because everyone was saying what you were probably thinking.
Okay. So the goal is to like make it more inclusive for women, so it kind of lowers the language around it, like in the macro. Is that what I'm getting at? Like, I don't get what
you
the
mean like
movement
feminism
for it. Yeah,
The
because it
movement
seems
was-
like when I'm like Googling it, and I even asked ChatGPT about it, there's a woman that people aren't sure if people aren't sure of what her role was, if she's a grifter, because
that's Brianna Wu.
Sarkeesian. Anita?
Oh, Sarkeesian, really?
Yeah.
She's definitely not a grifter.
No, she's the least likely to be because her thing is like she was a games journalist before Feminist Frequency.
But
I guess it all happened around the time that she was doing the YouTube series Tropes versus Women in Video Games.
Yeah,
and so
that's exactly what I'm referring to, by the way.
Her critique focused on how games often depict women as overly sexualized, passive, or as objects of male desires. This angered many gamers who felt she was unfairly targeting the medium that they loved. Critics argued that Sarkeesian wasn't a real gamer and was misrepresenting herself to lend credit. I'm just reading the critic part right now. Herself to
I could be wrong. I don't think she said she was a gamer though. And I want to clarify. By grifter, I mean, I meant she wasn't like faking her beliefs. I think she generally thinks everything she said about video games. I think she generally believes those.
Well, when I say grifter,
Sorry,
so
I got that wrong.
our definitions are going to be a little bit different. Like when I say grifter, it's very rare. Like if I do that, it's because you capitalize on some movement to. I'm sorry.
Sorry, she's a media critic, and I always forget that. I feel
okay.
I'm an idiot. I'm sorry.
No,
not
you're
a game
good.
journalist. Go ahead, Torch.
When I say somebody's a grifter, it's like they capitalize on the reactionary movements, whether she believes with it or not. Was she trying to create some sort of outrage around it? To me, that's kind of reactionary because you're feeding into the mob, if you will. But other than that, it sounds like just from that point of view, there was something about a Kickstarter campaign in 2012. Well,
the grifter thing, just because and because I'm pretty good faith here, I think, because I don't agree with a lot of her takes on video games, but I don't think she's coming into it to create outrage. I think she's like generally thought that like there's a lot of sexism in video games and she was trying to address that, and she created a lot of outrage, but I don't think that was her initial goal.
But is it sexism because they dress the characters in the overly sexualized stuff? Like, what exactly about the actual game is sexist? Were they hitting women in it? Because I saw another video that I couldn't hear that well, that there was an argument that like you were allowed to hit women, but I can't verify that. And I was like, what the fuck? That was the time.
it's broader than that. Games in general used to just suck if you were a girl gamer. Every girl character was non-playable essentially, or a sex object, and
non-playable. I thought that we've always had female characters since I've been playing them.
There have been
Probably not as
female
many.
characters like Miss Pac-Man and etc. etc. But like for the most
What about
part,
Mortal Kombat? How long has
Wait,
that
let me
been
just,
around?
wait, let me just jump in. Wait, there was a study. They looked at all the box art of video games. 99%. It's like an alpha male guy on the cover. Like that's that's their demo.
Okay.
I'm not saying for every single video game ever made. I mean, just generally speaking, I'm a little bit older. I remember those days. Your average video game character was either a thing or a dude. Very rarely was it a lady. And usually if a lady appeared in a video game, she was there to be rescued. It wasn't necessarily that big of a deal because you're right. There would occasionally be a girl character. It's just around this time, the early 2010s, people started to be like, hey, there's an untapped market here. There's a bunch of girl dorks too, and we should make stuff that they'll want to play. So we're going to make a girl option for things, and really pathetic guys apparently didn't like that. That's all, though. It's like the sexism they're talking about wasn't like overt, like get in the kitchen video game character. It was just like the subtle kind of lame stuff, you know.
It was basically saying like, hey, like these video games might be a little bit problematic. We might be able to have like a more diverse.
But there's no research to back it up, right? Like last time I checked, in terms of video games, it doesn't influence like more criminal behavior or something. Does it influence the way that men? Like if I had to look at something and be like something sexist, like porn is sexist to me. Feel like that's obvious. Not necessarily OnlyFans, right? Because that puts the control back in like the creator, and she can make something different, but just porn in general, like that is sexist to me.
The answer to your question
that changes. Well, let me finish. To me, that changes your view on women because it's real people. But when it comes to a game, I guess I'm just
the easiest answer to your question.
Skeptical.
Because I think this is because I don't think that was really the argument she was making. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. I think she's saying like, oh, it's weird if like let's like film like if you go to the movie theater and 90% of movies are made by men. Like, well, that's kind of weird. It's kind of like seems kind of sexist.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. It isn't that simple at the end of the day, though, because what we saw out of Gamergate, the sort of threats that someone like Zoe Quinn received and stuff like that, they're not the sort of threats you give to men. I'm going to tell you right now, they're threats you give to women. So I'm just going to leave it there for TOS. But
yeah, for sure. I thought we were going to get into like each girl. So I understand.
Sure. Same with Sarkeesian, even Wu.
Yeah.
So they do face gendered violence, and part of what inspires that to be so much worse for Gamergate than in other situations where two sides disagree is kind of like the polarization came from men wanting this culture, feeling entitled to this culture, and not being willing to admit that there's another side to it.
I do want to get that because I do agree. It's a whole topic of like whether women get different threats and feedback. I do want to get to that, but I want to talk. I think originally this came up because we're trying to tackle whether Nita Sarkeesian's like takes about video games were accurate. I think there are some accuracies there. So I don't think she was. I would definitely say she's completely inaccurate.
Let's do it.
But I do want to talk a little about that because I can't remember all of Anita Sarkeesian's critiques. I'm sure there were some flaws, but I think they brought up some good talking points that need to be brought up in the gaming space.
It's still on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, Torch, I posted it in the chat for you to watch because it's quite enlightening in my opinion. They might get facts wrong about certain games, but I think overall their general points apply to at least some extent.
There's a lot of particulars, but like some of the things he kind of talked about were the representation of video game tropes and stereotypes, violence against women in video games, limited diversity, and the industry and culture in general.
Well, yeah, the names of the videos are the tropes themselves, right? So they go over it in multiple videos. So it's not just the facts that matter; it's the overarching idea.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts or any questions, Torsha, based on anything? Because I know you kind of had some questions about the origins of this.
Obviously, like doxing and shit like that is absurd. I feel like I'm just not getting the full picture. I guess you don't really need it. Like nobody should be doxed, right? But I hate to like say it this way, but it's like, are they getting doxed because of the outrage over it, or is it because somebody wrote something that pissed off a group? Not saying that anybody
column
should.
A and column B.
I literally just think a bunch of gamers got online because they're making culture critiques they didn't like, and they resulted.
Was there a threat to these people?
So remember the timeline that it started with.
She definitely received threats at some point.
No, I'm talking about the men, if you will. What was the perceived threat that they felt the need to retaliate, if you will? Like
that like their gaming space is being criticized, and that the games are being taken away from them, and like that they're gonna have female protagonists. That was literally what they're freaking out about.
Which they still do today.
Example of a game that they took away. Like which game was it? What was
so this
bad?
is just happening right now. The new Assassin's Creed. Wait, let me just. This is still happening today. The new Assassin's Creed just came out. Got announced. They announced it's gonna be a female protagonist. People are freaking out, saying, "Woke video game. This is woke or broke." Just because they announced, like, "Hey, we want to have a female protagonist in this mainstream game." So it's still happening today.
We've had female protagonists though, like
no one's saying we haven't.
Raider. No, well, that's how it's being framed. Is what I'm saying. It's like that's the framing.
Jake's already pointed out, and so was Process, that we're speaking in generalizations.
No,
because
okay.
If I understand, well,
wait. Also,
I withdraw.
Torsha, wait, what was your example, Torsha?
Broom Raider, whatever, Tomb Raider.
Again, the ones you mentioned, Tomb Raider, Mortal Kombat, very, very sexualized female characters. So the only one we can think of are very, very sexualized, maybe not the best representation of a woman. Again, we're talking about, we want more inclusive representations of women, so that really doesn't really push back against that.
What does that look like? Can you give me like have they talked about what they want to see, like female Thors and stuff, like superheroes or something?
So you would agree, Torsha, that not every single woman is skinny with large breasts or large butt and always wears the most sexual.
Yeah.
Oh, I froze, I think. Did you hear what I said?
The big boob, big butt, skinny. That's
that's not your typical female.
Obviously. Okay.
So one of the first things is body representation, and then there's the social representation of women not just being victims, not just being helpless, actually, being the first person character of their own storyline.
For sure.
Their own hero.
Yeah, I was just asking what would it look like, just so I can.
Did I not? I don't.
I mean that did.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's what I was asking.
Let me try to give you an example, because I think this should not be outrageous, but this character actually sparked a lot of outrage. I think this person looks normal, but people were, again, this is the cringe gamers, were saying, "Oh, this person's ugly. You're making ugly female characters in games," which I think is ridiculous. I think this is a very normal person, but let me show this. 1 second. Sorry, dead air. 1 second. I got too many tabs.
No,
Share.
You guys remember when Jordan? I've got a.
This is from Verizon. Horizon Zero Dawn. This is like a very normal looking character, but when this came out, people were like making memes like, "Oh, how ugly this person is," and like it's just like a ginger person.
Yeah.
Who's like has no body type.
Mm-hmm.
Gamers are freaking out over this.
I hate that. Some gamers, the worst.
Yeah, sorry. The really online. The people. I mean, same people are kind of complaining about Gamergate still. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's basically just all we're seeing here is the first time the internet realized that who's that dude, the Andrew Tate community also plays video games. Like,
Oh, I was even
all it
going to
is.
say, I posted in chat a video of Jordan Peterson responding to what's that stupid magazine called with this Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. They had they had a plus size model, and he just felt the need to scream at her on Twitter, "You're not beautiful. I'm never going to be attracted. You can't force me." Not that anyone is. And that's the person who's really grifting on this movement, and those angry young men who want to be told, like, your feelings of anger towards women who won't sleep with you are valid, just like Tate does, and just like this movement did for a while.
You can't
so
force me to be
here's a good
attracted
example.
to
Like,
you.
people are literally like beautifying the character to show like that they're not happy with like the character design.
Mhm.
Like, this is what gamers are saying. No, like, no, we don't want you to kind of. They're honestly outraged like that. They want that we want to have normal body types in games. Like, that's offensive to them.
She looks like a woman I had. She looks like a woman that before I transitioned, I had some intimate times with. And I honestly consider it to be one of the most beautiful women I've ever been with, because the natural beauty is what really does it for me. When, like, I'm sorry, especially to me, because like I have to wear makeup to feel beautiful, but just when they don't have to wear makeup. And I'm not saying like sorry to you, but just because you are wearing makeup, you might feel outed.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
But yeah, like if you can just be like beautiful without it, then, and all women are really, but that's when I feel like I'm seeing their real beauty.
So I love this. I'm trying to think, like, I have to push.
Actually,
back
can
a
I give an
little bit.
example just really quick? Because you just made me think of something. Think about how many women wear makeup in like a fight scene. And would you ever wear makeup in a fight
Bitch,
scene?
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna have my wings on if I'm gonna.
No, because it's gonna get all smeared if you get hit in the face or something, right? Okay. I wouldn't. I don't like when my makeup smears
my
personally.
eyebrows on. Are you kidding?
Maybe I'm the sexist feminist
Is it
here.
gonna be broadcasted on YouTube? And then I might want to wear some makeup.
Hold on.
But can you at least empathize with my argument that it makes sense for most women? Like, why would I wear makeup into something where it's going to get messed up? Like, that's really stupid.
For sure.
So
that doesn't represent us.
So
Tori's the only one pushing back. So please go ahead.
So marginalized groups, women, they say, hey, we want to see more inclusivity. Love it. Let's do it. Great. That's what they want to see in the video game. But when men push back and say, this character's ugly, we don't think they're attractive, and that's what they like, we have an issue with that. And it's like, well, one of them is for the greater good and the other one is misogynistic or superficial, if you will. And it's like, well, yeah, but they're both consumers. And so this is what I have a little bit of pushback, just because it's like, why is it okay when we do it this way and not this way? Because the argument would be that women do things the right way. This is something that they'll often hear in like the red pill spaces. Like, this way of doing it is the correct way. And it's like, okay, is it socialized? Is it innate? The men that want to see skinny, big boobed women, is it the worst thing? Like, I don't know. That's why it's like interesting that when they say something about it, it's deemed as wrong.
Jake?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you've got a great point. I think that's an interesting perspective and valid as well. The issue is when the rubber hits the road and this stuff is taken into practice. Because in practice, what ends up happening is it's not just sometimes. And it's not like, oh, here's one bad opinion somebody had about somebody's looks. The issue is every single time a major franchise includes a lady or doesn't include a hot lady, they get ripped to shreds by a bunch of online ghouls who is essentially who's being talked about here. Now, you're right. Like, there's nothing wrong with like the video game Bayonetta. It's about a hot chick who runs around being hot and kicking ass. Great. And similarly, all the male superheroes are ripped to the bejesus and back, and they look like Samson. That's also great. But it's when every single time you try to give a sister a hand up, every single time you get a cool action scene with a gal or whatever, a bunch of these ghouls come out and say, "Oh, you're taken away." I know. The better way to sum this up is cry bullies. They're pretending like opportunities are being taken away from dudes, when the reality is it's just new opportunities being created for other folks.
Yeah, and I bet you've responded. I want to jump in here too. Yeah, I think I kind of agree. Because I think I'm more in the middle where I agree. I don't agree with all the criticism and Sarkeesian brings up. I think actually there's a lot I disagree with. I think I'm more in the middle where I want all types of games for all types of audiences, but I see people on both sides saying no, it has to be like only games for this audience, or we only want this type of game. I do feel like on the Gamergate, it's like, oh yeah, they only want their type of game and they don't want anything else to exist. And if they see anything else that comes up or is not really what they want, they will be very vocal about that shouldn't be a thing and how they want that to not happen anymore. And I'm just curious, I want to tie this back to our last conversation about determinism. Wouldn't it be, if we know about determinism, wouldn't it be kind of good that we want more diverse choices as far as representation in our game? Wouldn't we assume that would have like a better result than if we only have like this one type of person that we kind of look to in these video games?
Yeah, I guess my issue with these conversations is that the male gaze is wrong. That's like fundamentally what it comes down to. I don't mind inclusivity. I don't mind inclusivity. I know a lot of men that love to play female characters. It's like it's a game, you know. But I think that when we have the conversations about it, it feels very man wrong, woman good. And I'm the first one to point out when men are being crazy pieces of shit. In a video game where we know that the science isn't backed up, that like video games lead to violence or it changes a perception, it's like I don't know if this is, I don't want to say you shouldn't care, you always should. It's just I can definitely see the fear that comes from it on both ends, I guess.
I hear what you're saying, and where I think you and I start to differ is that after years of this, and by the way, I may be wrong, but after years of this, I've after years of this, my conclusion is that most of the people who are saying, who wind up saying, "Oh, you just don't like the male's gaze," are dishonest. And it's not really that. I'm not saying you're doing that now. You're doing a sincere argument. You're saying it feels to me like anytime guys appreciate something or stick up for something, it's viewed as wrong. It's not that that's what's actually happening. It's that what's being responded to is the extreme versions of that, or the horrible people that say they're sticking up for men's rights, but what they're really doing is trying to oppress women and minorities and all these other things in the name of men's rights. And that's where I end up having the problem, especially since these folks tend to look and sound like me.
It's like weaponized victimhood, though.
Yes,
that's how it comes.
Exactly.
No. From the other side, though. That's what I like hate when we tried to make it seem like we're like as a woman, when like the media will act like we're victimized because we're not represented in this way. I find it infuriating because we're focusing on an area that doesn't matter as much, in my opinion.
So you don't want to be treated like a damsel in distress.
So my pushback on this damsel in distress is I've been playing video games. This is my experience since I was young. I was born in 1995. Since they came out, I have older sisters. We had a PlayStation. I have no recollection of that. If you say Mrs. Peach, maybe it's a blur.
But you're saying you don't want to be treated like that, right?
Let me jump in here because I just want to let's get out.
So my issue is when hold on. It's we keep putting up this victimhood where one of the biggest issues that that women have is being treated like a second class citizen because men only see us as sexual objects. Well, because men see us as the weaker sex, and we always go to the media with this like victimhood narrative, that's how it keeps getting reinforced, in my opinion. Like, men see women weaker all the time, all the shit that's around it in the media, in the games. It's like, cry women. And I feel like we will continue to get treated poorly because of that narrative. That's my personal belief, though.
But like literally the people in these cases, it's like one of the people pointing this out, and people are freaking out. I think the one point is like, because I agree with you. I think there should be all types of video games. Like, I think it's okay if you sexualize the character a little bit more. The problem is, the argument is like 99% of women in video games are sexualized. It's like, let me know if you think about this. Get out of video games. Do you think it'd be good for, let's say, men on Instagram if 99% of the women they saw on Instagram were overtly sexualized?
But that's another thing. It's
Or
like,
yes or no
why
question.
aren't,
Do you think
sure, but why aren't we saying anything about the males in the game being not different kinds of sizes? It's always men have to be this.
That's a topic. That's a topic they talk about also. They're focusing way more.
But why is it with the body positivity, we don't talk about that? Like, if it's really about equality, if it's really about equality, well, let me just finish because that's how I talk. When it's about equality, if it's really about equality, where is that conversation? It always seems to focus, well, women are the sexualized ones. And I was like, I don't see a scrawny man in a video game. I don't see an overweight dude.
That's where you're wrong. There's way more diversity in male characters. I will see there was probably more like built men, but there's definitely they're done a little differently.
I think that we don't have body positivity for men on magazines. You can keep saying that I'm wrong, but the truth is, it's a valid point. It's always been this way about the males having to have this sculpted body. Obviously, we have things like women saying on TikTok, like, we kind of like ugly. We're attracted to ugly or whatever. Like, and I hear that. But when it really comes down to it, media, entertainment, I would say we don't have representation for male bodies. If you want true equality, you have to focus on both sides all the time. If you try to prop up one side, I think you're going to, personally, from a deterministic standpoint, I think it falls through. It ends up not being, we end up doing the wrong, sorry, I got thrown off on the second part. I forgot my last point.
One thing you got to keep in mind is like I know it's a diverse audience, but like the people kind of defending, they'll freak out because a game will like offer a female character and a male character. Like, no, it should only be a male character available. I'm like, that doesn't seem equitable. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, we're ignoring them anyway. Why does it matter what they say about it?
Let me first back up Torsha on that. I 100% agree. I know there's more male options, but still, the standard male character is a jacked Adonis. You are quite correct. Second, what the Princess just said, that's where I have the beef. It's that this crowd, when I was saying weaponized victimhood, it's that this crowd reveals itself for who it really is. When
when men tell their feelings and we keep telling them to share them. No, I'm just kidding.
Not that at all. I don't even like that these dudes get classified as men with me. It's technically true, so I'll allow it, but they've got a yellow card. Look, it's when this crowd reveals itself when you have something like a video game series will let you customize your character, and you can make a guy who's black, a guy who's white, a guy who's tall or short, and then they'll do a sequel to that series, and they'll allow you to have all those same options plus a girl who's this, a girl who's that. In fact, not even that. They'll just have one girl option that they'll include. And they'll get inundated. They'll get review bombed where their actual business gets affected because these people are angry that there's an option for girls. Even though nothing's been taken away for little boys that want to play the game, little girls that want to play the game get an option, and they're angry about that. That's who these people are, and that's what I have a problem with.
So I just wanted to quickly point out, because I'm still confused, Torsha, how you don't like you don't want women to represent themselves as being weak, like in the media, like when they present like victimization cases and stuff.
I guess when I see the conversations around
Okay, could I finish just before you respond? Just because I want to get your response to the whole thing.
I don't exactly agree, but okay, keep going. I was just responding to the first part because you were clarifying my point, and I don't feel like you clarified.
Sorry. I will try to listen. Just so long as we're clear, I do need to follow up.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. So, and then it seemed like you said that, it seemed like there was maybe some agreement, at least, that there could be stronger female characters in video games, even on some level.
For sure.
And we can see, like, does that kind of fit in with that narrative of having stronger women in media, so that way men don't just treat us like we're always victims? For you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like it.
Sorry, before I thought you pushed back on it, and maybe it was just too many people talking or something.
No, I don't have an issue with wanting to have more inclusivity. I was saying that earlier. Maybe I didn't say it that well, but my issue is that when I see some of these narratives, it's like all women good, all men bad, and then we say men should talk about their feelings, but when they spark outrage, not like that though. Which I understand because if we're gonna generalize.
But you did say like you don't believe in the male gaze, but how is that not the male gaze?
Wait,
no, that's not.
That came out of nowhere. What?
She said she doesn't think it's bad.
Yeah, I don't think the male gaze is bad. I think if you only have the male gaze, which is what they're saying, like the women and marginalized groups are like, hey, it's only the male gaze. Like we want to see the female gaze too. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have it, but it seems like we demonize the male one.
Like a sexualized woman is not inherently a bad thing. Yeah, we agree there.
Yeah. I don't know.
See,
I think that's where we disagree with.
I think that's where we disagree with Anissa Sarkeesian, where like, yeah, it's okay to have sexualized characters or even some of these more sexual tropes in games. I think the bit where I find agreement with her is where it's like it's over representation.
Does she say in Absolution that we can't have these at any point? Because I have watched the tropes in video games and I never came to that conclusion.
I don't know.
I'm gonna guess she's a little bit more critical than
probably
than
critical. Yeah.
Well, because I'm watching one video in particular for reference, and I think this is related to this. The video is called Strategic Butt Covering. I won't play the video, but basically kind of show how if you play a male character, the camera will be more shifted up, like focusing on the shoulders. Where if you're playing a female character, again, very usually leather clad, very tight fit clothing, the camera suddenly is a little bit lower and showing a certain region of their body. It's now literally, depending on who the character is, they'll literally change the frame, thus the male gaze.
So do you guys, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Do you think that like capitalism over sexualizes women? Do we all
definitely? Yes.
Yeah.
One, yes. And two, I'll disagree. I know we haven't even seen the video yet, but I'll disagree with the very premise of that video because men just have we have better shoulders. Facts.
I want to see some ass. I want to see the men's ass. Okay.
Yeah, men have tighter butts, and that's
Sorry, these are all women.
Yes, sir.
Let's contrast the way that women's butts are emphasized.
These are the female characters, at least that were very popular in video games like 10 years ago. I know there's a male character. A little different vibe, that's all.
Jerky. That's because in some games.
Yeah, but we got different bodies, you know? They're trying to
what
sexualize
about World of
all
Warcraft? Isn't it like all, or maybe I'm thinking of Diablo 3? It's like all female-esque characters, isn't it?
Not all female.
No,
I don't know.
I feel like all the men, all
the
men I know had what was it? The one with the bow and arrow? I think that was Diablo 3. I forget. Hunter. Was it a hunter? Maybe that was World of Warcraft. But it's just like, yeah, sure. In my experience,
Hunter is World of Warcraft, but you can Oracle also.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I was like, damn, it's been a minute. I don't know. I guess like, I don't know, the media thing. I don't know. I feel like I don't mean to make it about men, but just as like another viewpoint, I feel like we make men appear as stupid dads, incapable of parenting. promiscuous, maybe, I guess, in
Well, that's
some, or the I guess like the buffoon, stupid dad can't do anything, sits on the couch, watches TV. It's like that's how we depict men, but we don't see men coming and saying change what we look like. They just kind of accept it, and I feel
But
like
let me
that's kind
counter
of
that
sad. Yeah,
by
go ahead.
disagreeing with you, because
Sure.
even when we see that, and I agree, like Homer Simpson, typical thing, we also see that they're still the lead character or the person who drives the story the most of the time. But more importantly, if either gender is ever going to be like the smart plotter who actually like you want to respect in a storyline, whether they're evil or not, just it's easier to build up a hero character or anti-hero character even when they're male, because that's kind of like the default.
Yeah.
And especially like I know like in the 80s and 90s they even struggled then to write let's just say compelling stories for female protagonists, because there wasn't like any framework for that. And if you know they wanted to do it differently with like they still have to be princesses, but they're also doing this. It's like, well, why can't they actually have a true hero storyline where you start off small and you grow big?
Yeah.
Why are they always starting off as princesses?
I think another thing that we have an issue with, at least in our culture, is that we don't celebrate like pro-social behavior. It's always like that anti-social, manipulating, the guy that gets to the top of the firm, like that had to step on everybody's shoes. Like, I feel like we need to celebrate pro-social behavior and kind of pick up on these. I always talk about narcissism, but some smear campaigns. Are you guys familiar with this term? Like
Smear campaigns?
Yeah, like where a narcissist will get everybody against you. It's a very common
It's
problem
alienation.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Isolation and alienation. They'll even use public shaming rituals.
Yeah. It's like one of those silent epidemics. I always listen to Dr. Ramani, and she talks about it. She's like one of the lead researchers in narcissism, and says that it's such a prevalent problem that even today.
Yeah, how many of those are on YouTube? The lead researchers, especially, like
I don't know. I know her, and yeah, that's pretty much it, probably in that field specifically. But
I know Dr. Todd Grand, who also talks about it a lot. But
Dr. Grande.
He's funny though. I watch him more because
him.
he's funny.
Yeah, he's hilarious. He's
when he rips on somebody. Yeah, when he rips on somebody, he goes deep. It's so good.
He cuts so hard. But what I was gonna say is I watched this video from Dr. Ramani, and she was talking about how like arguably every person in the public today has dealt with this alienation of smear campaigns, and the movies and the TV shows, Netflix, it all reinforces that to the point where when people are actually victims about something, the language around it is like, well, she must have done something or he must have done something. It's like we always victimize. And I don't know, it was something I was thinking about. I was like, why do we prop up? It's victim blaming, but it's like, I guess our entertainment kind of feeds into it. And just the way that we talk
it's like
about
that episode of South Park where like Britney Spears is like the ritual sacrifice throughout the entire episode.
I haven't seen it.
Wait, let me bring us somewhat back on topic. Have you all heard of this? This
that
term,
is on topic.
The Bachdel test. Have you heard of this?
What is it?
I think it's pronounced Bachdel.
Yeah. Bechdel test. Yeah.
It's kind of like a writing test to see how good they are at writing female characters. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
So that it's a test that you kind of do. You can use it for any medium, but the test is you ask whether a work features at least 2 female characters who have a conversation about something other than a man. And it's crazy if you look at like media, almost everything fails this test.
No way.
If I could, because
go ahead.
I thank you for bringing it back to that with like the Bechdel test and that being essentially one of the many critiques that these writers were writing about in the video game industry. I want to be very clear though. What y'all are doing, what you guys are doing, a sincere discussion about gender dynamics in media, is not what the Gamergate chuds are doing. What they're doing is very different. They're using that sincere discussion as a cover to go be pond scum that ruins everything for everybody. Just to be very clear. So I love this discussion, but that's not who these people are. That's not even their intention. I'll go further. They don't give a damn about other men, about the male health or whatever. They use that stuff as an excuse to go pick on lady journalists, lady actors, minorities. I just want to be clear about who we're talking about with these.
Well, that's an opinion. I think it's impossible to know exactly why anybody does anything. So I disagree with that statement in general. It's just not my worldview. I don't know.
If it isn't impossible, how are we deterministic? I'm sorry.
Let's get some examples, please.
I think there's a lot of reactionary outrage. Go ahead, Jake.
I think again, I don't know all of it or maybe what exactly we're talking about in this specific instance, but I think it's very hard unless we have people that like got in trouble with the law. It's really hard to know exactly why somebody does something verbatim.
I think it's pretty good evidence. They're saying this about journalistic integrity. The initial event, way more people went after the woman developer, game developer, than the journalist. Usually, if you're criticizing the journalistic integrity, you should be going for the journalist. But it was used as a thing to shit on the woman way more than to actually do with the core of the idea was. Okay. So I think it's a pretty good, at least one piece of evidence.
Or if, for example, and I'll go generic here, but the and maybe my impression of these people is wrong. I'll grant that. But when I am seeing exchanges between these folks, which may be curated to outrage me, I'll acknowledge. But when I'm seeing the exchanges, it's never like these people start talking about like, whoa, well, a healthy way to include female characters would be this. It's always they reveal their intention when they get an opportunity to do something constructive or to help build the gaming community in a healthy way. Every single time they have no interest in that. Where their interest is pushing other people down. That's the impression I have. If I'm wrong, I'd love to see counterexamples so I can feel better about the world, certainly.
I mean, that like they'll certainly act like it's the other way. Maybe we could watch more videos and stuff, but it's either do you take them at their word or do you read their actions instead? And when you read their actions, I do agree more with Jake's perspective.
I have a fitting video. I think this looks to give a very accurate portrayal of this whole scenario. Not serialized or enhanced for television at all. This is a preview for a Law and Order episode that, again, this is such a cultural issue. It was referenced in the episode of Law and Order SVU. Here's a little trailer. It's only 14 seconds long.
Game on, NYPD.
Where's that coming from? Next Wednesday, ripped from the headlines.
This is a game to them.
What's the next level?
A violent video game inspires a real crime.
You ready to be slaughtered? Damn it.
New SVU next Wednesday.
Yeah, but that's a show.
Yeah.
I know, but
how do you know if that's true?
Oh no, this is obviously
not
is that,
true. But that looks like Logan Paul.
Jake Paul. He's in the episode.
I hate that they gave him a Beretta 92 as well. A nickel-plated.
This is what made it so like weird to hard to look at these issues because everyone saw this and was like, oh, this is very memeable. This is not a good representation of the Gamergate movement. But SVU chose to tackle it and arguably kind of gave more gas to the fire than actually helping it, I think.
I want to try to pull up. I'll do this on my lonesome. I want to try to pull up an example of what I'm talking about. But before I go scurrying around Google, can you guys think of, off the top of your heads, like a famous person that revealed what they're all about, like a critical drinker or something?
Sargon.
Sargon?
Yeah. Sean has a pretty good video about this. So does H Bomber guy.
Are you saying because of the intent thing that I was saying earlier?
Thunderfoot did too.
You're not going to change my opinion on this. I promise you. That's like one of my like really strong takes that I don't think I'll be open to new information on it, because it ends up just being like a see, and it's like, well, okay, maybe, but I don't think it holds up in the way that most people do, especially in a court of law. I think it's impossible.
Absolutely.
Well, this isn't a court of law.
In a court of law, even. I'll go as far as a court of law. You can establish it to intent.
See, I don't think so. I think it's a horrible thing that we've done.
Fact. In courts of law, you do establish it.
Right. Which is, I'm saying that, like, I have a very fringe take on this. I know.
Fair enough.
Most people disagree with me. I get it.
No, that's fine. And we may continue to disagree. Let me offer my reasoning for why I think you can establish intent, even when somebody's lying to you about what it is. You can establish intent if the rest of their behavior.
Are you mansplaining me right now?
Yeah,
it feels that way.
Listen, honey. Please forgive me.
I'll fuck you up.
No, please don't. I surrender already.
Like right now, like the amount of times I've had people come to me like this, it's very condescending feeling right now, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, no, it's
I don't think it was intentional.
It's explaining.
I'm just saying that's how it's
why
coming off.
I think this way, and it may be incorrect. I acknowledge that, but the reason I think I know these people's intent is because when I see the totality of their behavior, it doesn't line up with what they say their beliefs are.
Yeah, but people do this all the time.
Wait,
I think it's such a virtue signal when I hear it. It triggers me.
I don't know. I don't think it takes like a court to figure out that if someone's punching.
Sorry about
that's different, Melanie.
We can talk about intent, but I think that intent is what really matters because you just look at their actions. So these are groups where, like,
but
literally a character. Wait, let me list an example. A big character come out in Steam with like a black character, and it'll get review bombed. People they don't know anything about the game. The only thing they know that they're reacting to in the review bombs is the fact there is a black main character. Why would they do that? Or like
mental illness, honestly.
That's not a good thing. They probably should not do that. So like we can investigate why that is, but I don't
well, if
really
they're doing it, if it's an odd behavior, I would say it's probably a mental illness of some sort, and it would have happened. So it's just
I don't think it's if that's
a lot of people don't think
it's very normal. Well, like would you say just like reactionary outrage is mental illness? It's very common these days.
Not always.
You're explaining a lot away with mental illness.
I'm not explaining it away. I'm just saying that there's other factors that would be impossible to know unless we're inside of their brain. And so we can have our feelings about it, and it can be wrong morally and ethically, and we should condone it.
It's way more likely that reactionary conservatism.
Hold on, guys.
If you want to draw,
this is why I knew this was. That's why I was literally saying I understand it's a fringe take. We don't have to have a conversation about it. It's my belief. It's not your guys', and I don't feel the need to defend it.
It's my show. Don't tell me what to do. I'm moderating it.
But like I literally was saying, when I say shit like that, it's because I don't feel the need to defend it. But when we have conversations about it, I'm put in a position where it's like, well, what about this? What about that? I understand it's a fringe take. We can move on from it.
Also, like, does the intent really matter? I don't think it does.
Well, he was saying that it does. I said, I don't know. I don't think so.
I'll leave it be, but I think it was an interesting conversation. Interesting tangent. That's my word.
Oh, sorry, Mel. I'm sorry to cut you off. Did you have something to add?
No, your co-host had to drop it. Move it on. Jesus fucking Christ.
I love you.
I was trying to get this back on track because, okay. So I can see why it's kind of coming up because it gets a little complicated. Because earlier we were talking like why this kind of happened. Again, it started off as one small issue with like this relationship, this blog, this drama, and it did kind of blow up to a larger culture. So it had like one kind of key. Like here's an analogy. There's a spark, and like it really just kind of flamed up, and it's still being talked about today. I think it's more representative of where I think these are issues they're already there. They're already kind of present, and this kind of just like led to them being more well known or being exacerbated.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone else have anything to add to that?
No. I think that this Gamergate is fascinating to me because I think it was the first big instance of a phenomenon we are suffering from again and again and again, which is dishonest actors infiltrating communities where people are trying to have sincere conversations and just using it to do evil stuff. Use it as a cover to do really sinister things. And I don't like it. And I think it was so obvious in Gamergate. It was so like over the top with like the horrible things people said to legitimate journalists that it bums me out that as a society we have any question at all about who these people or what they're about. But we do.
Just a quick question or two, actually, for Torsia. Do you have a favorite video game character who is female?
A favorite?
Yeah.
Why? Why are you asking me that?
Oh, because I was just gonna ask if you'd want to see more characters like that in other video games, like not the exact same, like not a cutout, but just with like similar traits.
I was like thinking Tomb Raider because like I don't own a TV. I haven't in like 6 years, so I haven't been playing Tomb Raider.
Can
we get a Tomb Raider with smaller titties?
Well, she had polygon. She had polygon boobs for a while. Maybe we can go back to that.
Yeah.
So I would love that. The rest of it's totally
redhead.
Photorealistic, but then it's just the polygon.
Just the midsection. It's just cut out, like just the midsection.
There's very few. Horizon Zero Dawn, the example I gave earlier. There's very few women redhead characters. Very, very few. I can
Yeah, I
count
wonder
on my
why.
hand.
We got Wendy's, baby. Okay. Damn. It's okay.
Hold up for the Wendy's video game. Maybe one day.
Sorry.
But back on track, because I think it's why it gets so difficult to talk about these topics. Because we all people go off in this extreme directions. I do think the Gamergate, the loud ones on the internet, they're way more extreme than the ones on the left. When I'm talking about the left, I mean like the people like the Sarkeesians. I do think it's a false dichotomy to like compare these as like two extremes, because I do agree they're extremes on both ends, but I would say the Gamergate ones are way more unhinged and doing stuff like sending deletion threats, where I don't think it's so much the issue on the other side.
Yeah, but then it's their right to do it, right? It's not nice.
I don't think you have a right to send deletion threats. No?
Really? If
Isn't
you're
that
anonymous, if it's like a
deletion.
troll, self-deletion, I mean, I don't think it's right. I'm just saying they can.
When I say delete, I mean like I'm gonna delete you. Is I think.
Oh my god, that's terrifying though. That's
Yeah,
really, that's a threat.
Way
That's a
worse than
threat.
that. Like I'm gonna.
Yeah, you guys kept.
All the
You guys were
YouTubers
saying
can't say.
self-deletion, so I thought it was like go kill yourself.
I mean, I'm sure they got that too, but they were getting way worse than that.
I highly recommend Crash Override by Zoe Quinn if you can get your hands on it,
Yeah,
because
I will. I'll get it today.
It's very
actually.
eye-opening.
Yeah, I will.
I'm probably going to reread it just in case I encounter this discussion again, because I'm blanking on so many details. I'm kind of embarrassed.
It was a long time ago, and again, this is all preface into like another debate I was going to watch, but I kind of just like talking about this. That was interesting. I'm
ready for the debate. We need to start reviewing debates.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, like, do we say that for another night, or do we want to actually finally get into that tonight?
Honestly, I'm okay saving that for another night. I thought. Oh, I mean, I want to review it tonight. Is what I said just now.
I mean,
Wait, was that audible? I
This
didn't
for
even
a half
hear you
hour.
hear me
Oh yeah.
sigh.
I don't know if it was audible, but I felt it.
I don't know. We
So
don't need
I
to do
never-
the whole thing.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's eat it up.
I never finished this now this video. I was going to see if they because they're talking about a bill. I'll finish the now this video, and then we can see how we want to handle it. Because I did think it was interesting how the now this video is going further from Gamergate, talking about like Star Wars and Marvel culture. Because this has kind of it started off in the video game realm, it kind of has extended to like nerddom in general.
I spoke out and I told them the truth. And as a result of this, I had an unbelievable level of harassment sent my way. Just the most horrible damaging direct death threats you can imagine with my name, my address, everything. It traumatized me so badly, I can quote it to this day. Guess what, bitch? I know where you and Frank live. They listed my address. If you have any children, we're going to murder them too. There are some people that think these are just words on the internet. It's not. It has real consequences to real people.
Careers were shattered and lives were ruined, but the impact online was even larger. And it was only a matter of time before it spread beyond pop culture.
I feel like you should not be allowed to be on the internet without showing your full name in some way. Do you guys agree with this? Do you think anonymity is like, I think it's done more harm, honestly.
It definitely done a lot of harm. I don't know if that's the best solution because that has a lot of weird.
I don't know either.
Well,
I don't know. There's definitely implications that come from it. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes I'm just like, damn, imagine if they could show their own face and name or to somebody at least, so that maybe not to the public, but at least to some of the websites that could have like your driver's license. So if you do get connected to saying some crazy shit, that person can at least get like justice or whatever. I don't know. I think about it.
That communication should be tied in with personal responsibility. Like, you can be on the internet anonymously, but I don't think you should be able to anonymously go contact somebody in like a direct message, for example. I think then you need your personal information.
Yeah.
And I was trying to reflect myself, but Brianna Wu got these threats because she's a video game maker, and like she wanted to make like not male centric video games. Doesn't seem like a really fair thing to be mad at. Or again, to me, maybe it's mental illness, but it seems to me reactionary outrage, at least to some extent. I'm sure with people like sending weird threats like that, there's probably some mentally ill too. But I think a lot of people are definitely reacting in a way that's definitely not fitting. I'll just say that. And sorry, I rewound it because I was trying to hear something I missed.
Words on the internet, it's not. It has real consequences to real people.
Careers were shattered and lives were ruined, but the impact online was even larger. And it was only a matter of time before it spread beyond pop culture.
In the early stages, there was a lot of weight given to both sides of the issue. This idea that the gaming community was changing and a traditional gamer was disappearing, which made a lot of people who considered themselves traditional gamers really angry. What we can kind of learn from the harassment that they endured is that we have to be careful about which people that we empower in sort of this both sides debate.
How can fans discuss the movies they like and the games they play without
Can I
being
ask you guys
harassed or
something?
threatened?
Yeah.
I know it might seem really obvious, and there's a distinction, but sometimes I think that when we have something like cancel culture, and then you also have people that get together in these fucking weird little groups and harass people online, it feels the same to me. I know there's a obvious distinction, but don't you think that like having people jump to, in terms of like cancel culture, don't you think people just saying, oh, you should have known better is not really like helping? I don't know. Like, what are the vibes around cancel
May I ask
culture?
a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
How loose are we being with your definition of cancel culture?
Super loose. Loose.
Yeah, if we maximize,
like, obviously we get like an Andrew Tate. I get it. 100,000% obvious, you know, but like in other instances where somebody says some crazy shit when they're like 17, 16 on Twitter and now they're 40 and it comes back to haunt them. Yeah, they probably should have deleted it. We can all recognize that. But what does that say about us then? If some people are just going to be more secretive about their past, it's like we can acknowledge that not shitty people say crazy shit in their past, but we act like it feels like people act like virtue signaling a little bit.
Can I quickly respond just because I was going somewhere with it? I think the more you loosen the definition of cancel culture, the more you run into the freedom to tolerate or not tolerate somebody. And so that's one of the first things. Like, I think you need to be very precise as where it begins and ends. For me, it's when someone loses their job because of a protest against them. And I think, you know, we need to be honest that can happen because it targets the left too. Like, as we see here, like people tried to get these people fired from their jobs and stuff like that, obviously.
Wow.
And but I don't think like if you're applying for a job and that employer chooses to care about that and look into it, I'm a little bit looser on that, because if you spent your entire childhood, yelling at minorities on the internet because you feel like you're safe behind a shield, and you
She's been canceled.
You cut out, Mel. You got canceled live.
No.
Because I think it's an interesting question. It's also, keep in mind this originally came out like 2014, so almost like pre-cancel culture.
But it's like, we understand that your brain isn't fully developed till 25, and we can recognize that 17-year-olds are more reckless in other ways. Why wouldn't they be saying crazy shit just to be cool? You know what I mean? With the people around them at the time. I'm not saying it's right. I don't condone shit like that 100,000%, but it's just interesting that we hold people accountable to shit that they did before they were even like fully an adult, I guess.
I think also the difference is like one side is like, hey, you should be held accountable for your actions. The other one's like, well, yeah, because of your actions, we're going to send you death threats. I think there's a little, again, a false dichotomy, I think.
I guess like if it was after 25, to me, like your behavior is pretty set in stone at that point. So it's like 25, 26, some shit comes out. Maybe you're 37 now. I get it. But when it's even 17 for me, I'm like, I can't get mad at it. I don't know.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I think that what you're describing is actual cancel culture. And I think there's a bunch of hack comedians and entertainers and just, general criminals who people stop going to their shows or stop finding them funny. Like, for example, Jerry Seinfeld. And they start calling that cancel culture. Like, oh, this joke that you're offended by, the fact that you're offended is cancel culture. That's not cancel culture. That's just not being good at your job.
So, but they get harassment from it, yeah? I'm thinking like harassment. Yeah, no, I'm talking
what
when
you're
you
describing.
like blow.
My only thoughts on cancel culture is that it's over labeled. It's handed out to all sorts of things.
It's giving witch hunts. It's giving like
it's like all these internet words like woke. It get used so often where it's like it kind of becomes meaningless.
Yeah. But I agree with what you're saying. Like,
I don't think it's really like just the woke. I think it's just people.
Yeah,
no, but like people. I mean, it's like woke as an example that it's a word gets used so often where like it kind of loses its meaning where people don't really know what woke means anymore.
Yeah.
The actual thing you're describing, like somebody makes a post 20 years ago, they're a totally different person now. Yeah, I think probably everybody's in agreement that that's not something to hold over somebody's head for their whole life. We can't be the judge of a chapter that somebody's not living in their life anymore.
Well, I hate to derail the conversation, but I think this might be into topic because I think Torsha disagrees with us because I want to bring us with Jake and Mel because I think the left leaning, I guess, does use culture, but I think they're also way more open to like redemption or people like kind of correcting themselves as well. I think it might be character, but I don't think most lefties are like, oh, you said this thing 20 years ago, you're dead to us. You can never be redeemed. I think it's kind of like character.
Yeah. Here's what I've noticed about the left. You don't even have to like each other. You can work with people you full on hate.
So it's like hypocrisy. That's what it translates to me, though. If you hate
it's
them,
an understanding of shared interests. That's all. There's plenty of folks that I probably wouldn't get along with as pals, who I could campaign with. It's got nothing to do with that. It's about making the best world for everybody.
Yeah, think about working somewhere and like, you might disagree with someone, but you don't have to be opposed to them as a person.
Dwight and Jim.
I'm more opposed to someone who would like to be opposed to someone in real life. They'd have to do something pretty awful in real life, because I think it's possible to redeem yourself with words just by saying more words. But if you do something like, his actions are well, that's not a good analogy, but like, it's just not as simple to say like, well, now you do something just as good, because it's hard to say how awful that was for that person. At least with the internet, you can avoid that if you really need to at the end of the day.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to victim blame or anything, but at least there's that option, as opposed to physical realities that you impose on somebody.
Mhm.
Fair.
I feel like it only takes place online though when I'm thinking of like a mob.
Oh, that's what I mean by like losing your job. Like if you
Yeah.
that's like sorry, I should say material now that I think about it.
Yeah. I think it's I kind of think we're moving into a space where the self, it's like we have the unconscious self, the self, subconscious self. I think we have a technological self too, or like a digital footprint self. So it's like, even though it's just online, we're getting to a point where that's how everybody stays connected. Most people don't see the people like their friends and family as often as maybe they would like to, but they definitely see them online. And when that's coming, I don't know. It's something I've been recently thinking about. It's not really, I don't have formed beliefs on it.
Your digital self leaves behind a ghost when you're done. Your social media accounts
The ghost
don't
in the
delete upon
shell.
death.
Yeah, it's like everybody knows that version, but the rest of the public can be anonymous, right?
All you know about me is what I sold you.
Sing, do it. Put her on.
No,
song.
I can't.
Do it.
Nope. I'm not warmed up. Nope.
Do the Grinch. Do it.
Oh my god.
Who's someone that was like,
I'd love it. No, trust me, we can do it on a night where I warm up first. That's
mean one, Mr.
like
Grinch.
I warmed up whenever I was mic'd out off before that. You can see how often I mic off before that and like don't respond to anything. It's because I'm practicing to sing to Ben.
I love it. I do.
Aw, thank you. And I have gotten better. Actually, hearing that back a couple times kind of tells me how the mic hears me now. And so
Yeah.
I know kind of like to project more from further back rather than come up and try to project.
It was so good.
Thank
that
you.
Last time, it was so good.
And I'd never actually, like, before that night, practiced that song. So I'm excited to, at one point, when we figure out how to do karaoke, to try some songs I have practiced.
That would be so fun.
Speaking of that, there'd be way more. There'd be more karaoke video games if not all games were made for men. But here we are. But
I should say, like, I think your voice is very beautiful too, Torch. Let's just return the compliment real quick.
Thank you so much.
I'm just awkward. Sorry, that's my autistic side. I can't return compliments very easily.
You're
would
good.
love it
I
if
was.
you guys
I don't
did
pick up on social cues. You're good. I didn't even notice.
Can someone like do like a
thank God
karaoke debate or like competition karaoke? I don't know. We'll figure it out. But
I
do
would
wanna
love
get-
to. I'll watch that show for sure.
We got 2 minutes left for this video. Let's get through it.
Let's do
How can we make it safe to be online?
We need people from technology, push.
It's directly related to what we're just talking about. People online, IRL, anonymous. Let's keep going.
Privacy policy, pushing cybersecurity, all those things to keep people safe.
Fighting online harassment begins with better oversight of online communities. Abuse against women is rampant on social media, especially women of color. But moderators cost money, and platforms are only so willing to police themselves. There's not much the government can do to help either, thanks to the First Amendment speech protections. Congress can't stop harassment where it starts, but they can address when bullying turns into threats. Proposed bills like the Prioritizing Online Threat.
Do you something to add, Jake?
No, I was concerned when they were saying that lawmakers can't do anything, but no, I
They made it clear the threat. Yeah.
No, bills are apparently. Again, this is 3 years ago, so maybe there are some updates now.
And can I just point out? Sorry, just to aid to like the reaction of of this, like things to like they even the right even responds to things that are meant to protect us in spaces online, like Jordan Peterson and Bill C-16. That might seem really detached, but when you think about like what Jake's kind of to say, like this is a movement of hate, and so Jordan Peterson spoke to their desire, like their fear that they can no longer be hateful towards trans people without going to jail.
Yeah.
Interesting connection.
have been unable to gain traction. And given the age of your average legislator, it's not surprising that they have little experience with the devastation of online harassment.
You don't want to restrict anybody's freedoms, and you don't want to over-moderate spaces to the point where you are repressing free thought and free expression.
True.
But there is a clear and present danger that has been shown time and time again in extremism online.
In 2016 and 2020, Brianna Wu ran for Congress, and she'll keep running until things finally change.
The reason I decided to run for Congress is that I wanted to throw my voice into the mix. I wanted to do what I could to try to make a difference. This is not the first time, mankind has struggled with a new technology and fitting into a policy that works for society. It's time to think about this for the internet. We can make this better.
Movies and games have a meaningful impact on our lives. We form entire communities online just to share our experiences and excitement. But in the algorithmic echo chambers of today's internet, all it takes to turn fandom into...
All right, you can because the whole intro, but we got through the video. We did it.
Hey.
At the end, basically became an advertisement for Brianna Wu. Interesting. They're on
who's been on a slide away from the left recently.
That's the only thing I know her from is more recent headlines.
Let's just say she's making fun of herself the more she posts online.
That can be a future topic because I know Anna Kasparian just left the left also.
Oh, I called that so long ago, especially even before the birthing person stuff, because I just noticed that she would overreact to anything that the trans community vocally wanted, and she never seemed like a really solid ally because she would easily say she wouldn't just say okay, there's both sides of the trans.
We'll discuss that more in depth in our next.
No,
one.
you
wait here. Keep going.
Sorry,
At least let me finish and then derail.
I find it fascinating when people fall into these pipelines and how you can begin to notice it. So I want to hear about it. What exactly was she not how did her views change? It always fascinates me.
Can I mention?
Well, in that she would change her mind. Can I finish?
Well, I think you missed one. The one beginning factor was I think she was saved by a unhoused person. I think that was they made a post about that, and that was one of the initial things where she got a lot of backlash from the left about how she's representing.
She claims she did. I tried to look for that. Okay. One of the things that I've noticed from her is that she changes her opinions quickly after she gets pushback from the left. And the thing is if you're a real leftist and another leftist disagrees with you, you either change your mind or you become way more dug into your own opinions. There is no I'm going to leave the left now because another leftist doesn't like me, or even a group of lefties.
Or maybe both sides of the lefties didn't like her, and it was what's the point?
Well, yeah, she started taking wedge issues and saying, you know what, I'm just going to agree with the right wingers on these. And I have a suspicion, because this is just kind of what I noticed from TYT, is they're more likely to air these opinions because it's a wedge issue and because it'll get more views and more controversy to kind of around it. So I think she started with doing that, and she's just noticing good results. And let's be real, she's a bit of a diva. She's not necessarily anti-capitalist, neither is Cenk. They're critical of capitalism sometimes, but not anti-capitalist. And so there's nothing stopping her from pursuing a higher income. That's just my perspective.
Do you guys think they get paid on the right more than
Oh,
the
definitely.
left?
100%. Easily.
Tenant Media,
Interesting.
perfect example of what's going on with that. Yeah, they get
for sure. I get that, but
or even just the amount of money that's funneled into right-wing think tanks, who a lot of time these right-wing podcasters and streamers are a part of, or at least speak for.
I've noticed also even in the podcast, they'll get way more donos and again, they're not comparable. If you watch Sam Cedar or another leftist podcast versus Andrew Wilson, Grid One, or whatever podcast.
Yeah, Majority Report doesn't.
On the right.
They don't really ask for donos though, so that's a bad example.
Yeah, whatever. But
I've seen from mutual aid things thousands of dollars come in a single night, so that's not always the case.
I think though advertisers want to put. Sorry, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, just we're more look at Bernie Sanders. We're more likely to take small donations not from big donors because that goes against our like anti-corporate, anti-capitalist view. Whereas the right's like, give us that big corporate money right now, throw it right into our bank. I don't care even if it's black money.
I was gonna say,
or dark money, I should say.
I think because more of the audiences are maybe not as financially intelligent, whereas I think someone on the left is gonna be like, well, no, let me invest this money or like actually put it to the government and like into campaigning. Whereas someone on the right's like, oh, I'm angry, let me super chat this person real quick.
There's a lot of perfectly legitimate reasons why the right gets more money as well. I mean, let me be clear, a ton of illegitimate reasons that we should be genuinely concerned about, maybe legislate against, but even with that, there's legitimate reasons. Case in point, if you are on the right, you are generally advocating for big business, for less regulations. Businesses will pay more for that because they want to keep more of the output that they make. They don't want to give it back to build society up. So they'll pay, when they pay ads on these things, they'll pay at a higher rate than they would elsewhere. And that's fine.
Sorry that I didn't elaborate. Yeah, sorry I didn't elaborate. That's kind of what I alluded to with like the left's more anti-corporate, anti-capitalist, and that's why you don't see us or taking that.
It's just a good financial decision on behalf of advertisers. They're right not to give me much money because I'm coming for their asses.
Especially with me here, you'll never find anyone who's more critical of it all. So
I feel like a lot of people are scared, or a lot of businesses would be scared to put sponsorships or ads on the rights stuff because they get in trouble so often. Like I always thought you'd make more money on the other side.
You have to go a lot farther right is the issue. Whereas like just being anti-capitalist is enough.
Well, it depends. It's like, like the big corporate companies, those are going to be more less likely to do that. They're more left leaning in general. But like the smaller companies,
but that's
like,
where you get the big
coffee.
And that difference in size alone is like what the biggest, to my opinion, is economically the biggest driver is for that difference in who gets more money.
I guess I just think like, oh, Nike or something, like they'll sponsor somebody on the left. They wouldn't sponsor somebody.
Kind of. Again, Kaepernick is an anti-capitalist.
True.
Well, also, I think maybe it's a little bit different now with capitalism, but I think a lot of corporate companies, they don't want to sponsor anyone political. They'll try to stay away from that.
They don't want to rock the boat.
Really?
Like this is older, but like
oh my gosh,
about OJ Simpson, where he's like OJ Simpson is not. He's like, oh, I'm not black. I'm OJ Simpson, saying he's not a political or like a racial figure. He's like,
I meant they don't want to risk their profits. Sorry, when I said rock the boat, I didn't mean like racially and stuff like that.
I feel like it helps even the outrage, like the crazy shit. But maybe I'm just still thinking
it's a double-edged sword. So there's the Streisand effect, right? But if there's other companies doing it, then it immediately just like diminishes the returns.
True.
Well, so I think it probably got popular for like the last 5 years, but I think it's already kind of petering out because people realize that had its moment, it's kind of passing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like woke marketing, woke capitalism, woke marketing.
Yeah, everyone's kind of like, oh yeah, right. They're trying to beat the left now. Whereas before, it was, even for me as a leftist, it was kind of funny when they would make, like when Bud Light would just go like in hard against the other side. But then when you think about it, it's like, well, it's super easy for them to do that. And they didn't actually say anything real. I'm just happy that they're making right wingers mad. And doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I hope the whole internet will take away from this the realization of the real dark truth, which is that the corporations don't give a about nothing. They just want that money. That's it. Don't hope that they're going to be good guys. Don't be angry at them for being bad guys, because the reality is they're not human beings at all. They're just
if they're adding a rainbow to a logo, they're doing that because they'll think they'll make more money.
100%.
Corporations and Andrew Tate fans, just to be clear.
Not sure Andrew Tate fans.
I'm just kidding. That was just like a visual example.
Kids, like they're brainwashed. They'll come out of it.
No, I know. And that was just a visual example of, where he's like showing off his cars and stuff like that.
Jesus. Yeah, no, I know.
Because I'm not sure if we answered Torch's question. I'm sure you can go into more detail, but basically,
well, come on, mansplainers, get better.
Yeah, God damn.
They felt they're kind of. They got bullied by some of the more progressive part of the left, and I definitely agree with your and that like that should not make you leave the left. Like you might like maybe like less progressive, but I would probably never abandon the left because I feel like I got attacked or bullied by some people on that side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or let's say
in Substack to see your own words. There you go.
Do you think that like me being really mean to you, like I mean like going and calling you a fascist, reactionary, and all that on like a single trans issue would be enough to like make you like opposed to all trans people ever?
No, of course not.
And that's what I mean for like it's a red flag for people who are doing it for more shallow reasons.
Yeah. I guess how would you know? It goes back to that intent thing, you know.
Well,
Obviously,
this is why
rhetoric that's hardcore, don't get me wrong, but if it's like people say crazy shit.
It actually
Well, what do you make of somebody who says they're doing one thing and then contradicts themselves with their actions?
I think people do it every day, unaware.
What if they
Melanie? She's like,
okay. That's fair. You know what? I hadn't considered that. I mean it more in the magnitude though of like this person's really passionate about this thing, right? Like it's like their everyday single thing. I'm really into game journalism, yet you never actually do any real game journalism. You never even describe what real game journalism looks like. You just talk about how the left is always ruining it. At some point, that consistency is what gives you a common pattern. And I think it's easier to explain that with an intent than without one.
Or they're delusional.
I think that's a cop out, and you have to prove they have a
no. So
I think you'd have to. I didn't get to finish. I think you have to show that they have delusional tendencies first.
Yeah, that's really hard in this country.
Unless you're their, therapist.
Even then.
Well, no,
150 and they see the one doctor that's there, like it's hard to get the same doctor twice if you've been more.
Okay, fair.
Like it's hard to get a good diagnosis for that.
We do have repeatable tests at least for these sort of things. I agree, they're not perfect.
Yeah,
I agree, they're definitely not perfect, but they're not nothing either.
You need more funding there so we can have longer, like a longer what's it called when you watch somebody, like observation period?
Yeah, observation research. Yeah, and girl, like you're preaching to the choir here. That's the story of trans healthcare.
Yeah, we need it.
I think
for everybody
that the Anna Kasparian situation ties in nicely with that thing I was mansplaining earlier. I zoned out. No, just what I was saying. Where the left
it's back on rails.
We can hate each other and it's like we can still work together. And
I don't hate anybody, even if they're mean.
I'm saying folks on the left often like, oh, they don't like each other, but you see them working together all the time. And the reason for that, and the reason I raise an eyebrow at Anna Kasparian, is because how somebody else treats you should not affect your opinion on policy generally, because you're not in this thing to be in a social club. You're not in this thing. It's nice if they develop, but you're in here because you have a set of political beliefs. That's supposedly what everyone
ideally, right?
Yeah,
like
and
ideally,
it just raises concerns when somebody's like, "Oh, well, this person didn't treat me good, so now I believe something totally different about the best way to run a country." It makes me doubt that in the first place.
I'll be the first to admit that.
Like I've done that.
Let me moderate. I'm going to steel man because I got steel man, and because
I'm the only person you quote unquote moderated, by the way. Even though we were all talking.
Because you're the only one who keeps cutting me off when I keep trying to talk.
No, we were all talking.
True. I was.
I'm trying to steel man against Jake's thing because
keep muting the trans woman.
I gotta give the other side. Yeah, I hate to meet the minority, but it's come to that. Because I was steel man, and I agree. I would not leave the left, but I think a more accurate portrayal of her, how Anna might say, is she had a lot of discussions in the left. She was kind of she found a major disconnect between herself and the more progressive side of the left, and that made her realize that, hey, this might be so big that I might not be appropriate for this party anymore.
Do
you think that might be a little different lens to maybe look at through?
So when you're not anti-capitalist, that's like the only direction to go. But when you are an anti-capitalist, the only other direction to go is further into the left, away from progressives or groups that show like these indicators. Because yeah, if an entire group has a problem, I don't see any problem with leaving that group. But the left isn't just progressive. The left isn't like even just quote unquote breadtube online. Many people argued about where that started and ended. So even within there, you could often move around between communities and stuff like that if you didn't like one. So I find it surprising, like Anna Kasparian could have legitimately gone to Lance from the Serfs community and had the most wholesome experience ever. But she instead decided to go into the center. And I think just that frame of reference that she's not anti-capitalist is why.
What is she anti-capitalist? I assume she would be a capitalist, but also
she's not anti-capitalist, but she criticizes capitalism. So
well, yeah,
not unlike
I'd say the same myself. Yeah.
Oh my God, Jake! I'm putting a big red flag on your head now.
Oh.
Yeah, I was gonna say it somewhere. I probably totally forgot. So just
You should have been there from the jump, though. Wait a minute. You didn't already have a red flag over me?
Now I need to preach to you. I need to preach to you about social ecology. Have you ever heard the ways the good word of Marie Bookchin?
Forget this. Let me please go going because. Sorry, I'm gonna keep steelmanning Anna because I think she felt like she did not have a place in the left where she could like have these discussions. There's probably
She's
more
just
to
wrong. That's just wrong.
So she talks about I'm gonna use her words. She talked about how like she like wanted to just have a discussion about her essay incident, and she could not do that. She was criticized for even bringing that up as having occurred. So like she probably felt like she could not bring up certain subjects or maybe even exist in this space.
So Lance from the Serfs particularly denounced anyone who tried to like make fun of her or criticize her from that. And I'm pretty sure nobody from his community pushed back on that. And Lance does have a network tied to Anna Kasparian, and I know that they've met in the past. I've even like when he did, I was still kind of in contact with Lance and we chatted about it. But the point being that I think that this is just the like, well, do I go into a community that doesn't make much more money, or do I go to this other community that does?
Or what if it's not about money?
It's either that or the anti-capitalist. I can't think of like we're talking about if there was diversity or not. There was. I'm trying to explain like I've seen so many leftist communities. It'd be impossible not to find another community that she would undoubtedly grow and explode with probably even more positivity and leftism. So, you know, she has so much power to go into a new community and just completely like change that space. Even I can't imagine how she doesn't see that as an option.
Why couldn't you do that from the center though, or from a non open end? I guess she's like unaffiliated now. Why couldn't you do that from an unaffiliated position?
Right. So was Tim Pool for a while.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's exactly, but we'll see. I'm curious. Sorry, one more thing, because I'm sure Anna Kasparian's going to do a podcast. Like, I wonder if she's going to just do like a Dave Rubin where. So she was on the Young Turks, and I think she's still on there for now, unless anything changes. But it's interesting because a previous Young Turk, Dave Rubin, kind of did the same thing like 8 years ago, where he was like the gay person on Young Turks, and he's like, I'm leaving the left, and now I'm interviewing all these right-leaning people on my podcast.
So has Jimmy Dore. There's several other people I just can't list off because my brain doesn't like doing that.
Brain's like, fuck them.
I have two thoughts. One being, we should make...
You keep that finger away from me, sir.
Yeah.
You keep your fingers to yourself.
We should make... I got a finite around... I got a big fat hands and a dumb face that I got to fit all on here. No, we should make a bet. And I suspect that in 1 year's time, Anna Kasparian will be working for a far-right network. Not
the Daily Wire.
I think Daily Wire is very likely.
Yeah, Princess and Torsha, if you guys want to take the other side of that debate, we can go like two. I
would not be that surprised.
Team bet kind of thing.
We'll save the date. October 4th of next year.
Yeah, baby.
I'll be honest. Like, I used to watch a lot of Young Turks, but that was like 5 years ago, so I don't really know what she's up to these days. but just based on the trajectory of
still on
other
it.
people that have left, or the other people that have like kind of left the left and gone to the other side, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think the Young Turks will hang on to her for as long as they can.
Oh yeah, they have not announced she's like leaving yet or anything.
Oh, but
she's not going to the right yet. She's just
people can change their views, guys.
They can, but that leads me to thing number 2, which is what makes me suspicious of somebody. What makes me suspicious is when their arguments are designed in such a way to avoid a criticism that they know is a major problem with their
That's it. But that seems like projection. Like I would need an example for that one.
Like
when you say it's projection, do you mean like everybody does it kind of thing?
It's just like that seems like a personal opinion, like how you might feel about it. But it's like I don't know if that's that. Like somebody can switch sides because they arguably don't believe in the message anymore. They're allowed to. I'm not saying it's right. I actually don't think it's hypocritical. I think it shows a level of nuance, but it depends. I would need another example in the reverse, though.
So once upon a time, there was a study that
if you need to go feed your dog or deal with Lokai.
She's still laying on the bed. Like normally she'll come here and we'll go outside. What you want? Talk to me. My little baby. What do you need? You need some help? You want to go outside?
If you gotta go, that's okay too.
Oh, okay. I gotta post a video for you, Torsha, just in the side chat really quick. If you have to walk away and come back and look at it. It's a really funny video. This is honestly like one of the funniest people on the internet, in my opinion. And it's called Videos for Dogs, where he goes, but you'll see the channel's name is called Internet Comment Etiquette. So he does like a lot of comment stuff.
Okay.
And there will be a lot of like running jokes that will be like, what the fuck? Why does he do this? But I guarantee you, like the way he works with his dog. Yeah, the way he works with his dog in his video is the cutest fucking thing. I died.
I'm gonna watch it. Thank you. Lokai, do you want to go outside?
Oh my god, paste the link. Jesus.
Lokai.
Is his name Loki? That's such a good
Lokai.
Dog. Oh, Lokai. All right.
Yeah, that's offensive to call him Loki.
Yeah, what the fuck? It's why?
I
Because
had a
most
dog
of
named
them are
Loki.
named
Tread
Loki.
real carefully, the both of yous. I had a treasured dog named Loki.
No, just don't
really?
misname people's dogs. It's very
Lokai.
Lokai. Fair
Hi.
enough. What does Lokai mean?
I named her after that bracelet that takes from the highest point of the mountain in the world. It takes some rocks from the highest mountaintop and then takes rocks from like underwater, the lowest point. I forget where.
Is that why they call it Lokai?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That doesn't even make sense.
No, well, in like Hawaiian or some shit, it means heaven and hell, I think. Like highest point, lowest point.
But watch the low mean like heaven.
Fuck, I don't know.
Just
it's like low key. I don't know.
Low key, I don't know. But I like the bracelet. They're black and white, and I don't know.
Okay,
I was
cool.
just like, that's her name. And then I have Rue, who's my littler or my smaller Dalmatian. ROO. She runs like a kangaroo. That's why I named her that.
Torsha, before we go, I want to show y'all what kind of what Gamergate looks like today, because we did the whole timeline. I don't know if we're actually this debate reaction, but I just want to show one of the channels of one of the people they're debating. And again, I think this is what kind of Gamergate looks like nowadays. Let me share this channel. But just look at some of their thumbnails we got here. We got like masculinity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Words I don't want to see on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They're woke. It's, you can see it's definitely like a very one-sided conversation being had.
Delusional. Yeah. Sorry. I'm gonna open everybody's minds up.
I just think that word's doing more work than it actually can. If we're
push back, that'd be awesome.
I have a belief that delusional is a spectrum. I think most people can access.
More and more different people.
Please,
no, she wants to have a different conversation.
I'm relating it to that. Let me finish.
No, I'm not. I'm
wait.
relating it to it.
No,
I'm
can I
better.
please just fucking respond?
I gotta go. I got a
Please.
dog
Sorry.
crying.
I know.
I'll
Say
come
this.
back if you guys are still live, but she's got to go potty.
I'll stop
Torcha.
fighting over you. I'm sorry.
Torcha. But saying it's delusional is just too good faith. What happens? This is a YouTuber. They realize like, hey, if I make rational content, I get way more views and clicks, and they roll with that. That's exactly what happened.
I
If you
would
look at-
disagree.
No, if you look at old content, it's like normal. It's like normal gaming content, and like you can see them actually like start to make titles like more Gamergate, and their views just go. And actually, we'll get into the debate earlier, but you can tell by the debate skills they're not. They come off very grifty. I'll just say that.
I'll take a look, but again, it's hard to tell. You know, I'll try. I'm sure. Watch them be like totally normal. I bet you there's probably something off with him, but that's just me asserting it from the clickbait. Who knows? I don't know.
We are technically judging a book by its cover.
Whatever. So are y'all.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's the purpose of the cover. I don't even understand that phrase.
Also, it's YouTube, the like thumbnail and titles, everything. So you should judge them by the cover. That's literally the first thing they're putting out. They're saying this is how you should look at us.
You're the one mad about it, not me.
I'm not mad about it. To be clear, I'm not mad. You're saying it's delusional. I'm saying no, it's not delusional. It's actually completely rational. They've realized, hey, I get way more clicks and way more engagement if I make rational content.
Just because I use the term delusional doesn't mean it's bad. Right?
Okay. I think it means like irrational.
That when I cut you off earlier and I was saying I think it's more common and on the spectrum, that I was trying to make that distinction, but I suck. I'm coming, baby. We're going.
Gang, I had a great time
It was
doing the stream with all
so
you,
much fun.
genuinely.
Yeah.
Torcha, I will give you the greatest gift I can to a new friend, which is the Jakes It.
Which is the one.
I was not going to end the stream, but okay.
Princess, I actually want to
You got
tell
it
you an
too?
interesting fact about the delusion spectrum.
Well, so
Do
Torcha,
I do it. I'm gonna be outside
Yes,
though.
I knew
I'm
she'd
gonna
be
have
down for
my
it.
phone. I want to hear it though, but I'm gonna have to take her outside. Okay, bye.
Bye.
See you, Torcha. See you around.
So, and she said she might come back, so I was just giving her a chance to. So the interesting thing is like we do kind of have a delusional spectrum. People are more or less prone to delusional thinking, and in fact, it's very easy to test because they can invoke it themselves if you ask them to, and you know they're doing it voluntarily. What kind of like tapers off how many people are actually delusional at the end of the day is how many people are capable of reality testing. So if you think of like the delusional thinking spectrum as being like an exponential curve where most people aren't delusional, and then it goes down in that kind of nice smooth curve to like the most delusional people who are the rarest cases. Reality testing is kind of like putting another curve on there, saying your most likely people are also going to be those who can reality test, and that really thins that curve down even more. It's kind of like you're saying you had x to the 2, well now you have x to the 4. And if you know how those lines work, it really does like you fall straight down, and then everything else is just rare cases. So that delusional thinking is really a complicated dynamic in the mind where you can't just say like how delusional is somebody. You also have to ask how well can they do reality testing, and that's where your rational conversation came in, because you said, well, yeah, they are doing reality testing properly. Look at, they're saying if I do this I get X result, and I can do this predictably and reliably.
And yeah, I guess it just helped to define delusional, because I mean, I guess I see a definition where you can admit everyone's somewhat delusional because we all have delusions. But I think most people say that.
Yeah, I can think about. I can
off the track. Yeah,
I can think about me being a magician right now, like in the Harry Potter universe, because I read all those books as a kid and I know it inside and out. But I don't. I'm never going to think I actually am a magician in Harry Potter. So I do have
to get into the debate.
Yeah,
I do want to do that. We'll do it in the future, maybe one day, because it's an hour long. So I didn't want to keep you all up for too long.
Well, it's funny because like usually in these things, like people get into the weeds by the end anyways. So the first part is where you get like the most ideas kind of gone through until they find something that they get stuck on.
A couple of things we got stuck on.
I wasn't talking about us. I was just talking about like if we could watch like a third of this debate and probably get the most of it, the gist of it, and then watch, and then it probably breaks down for like the rest of the 2/3 into that repetitive back and forth. Well, I disagree with this, so I'm going to try to change your mind. Well, I disagree with that, so I'm going to try to change your mind on this very kind of like in the weeds thing.
We can definitely get into it. I do think it was kind of interesting just to talk about Gamergate for 2 hours, because I do think in some ways, actually, if I need to like write an article about this, because I keep noticing all these things that are like kind of being cyclical. I'm playing around with a video essay of like the return of the edgelord, and now the game things. It literally seems like all these things are just repeating every 10 years almost.
I can kind of explain it for Gamergate because you have like again, this is like a distribution thing where the rarest person is the person who's been doing it since day one and it just hasn't stopped. I happen to meet one of those people. They're exceptionally obsessed with the topic. And then there are people who are like, they were really into it when it was most popular, and then as its mainstream kind of appeal faded, so did they. And some of them are only just starting to come back around now. Jake, what's up?
Oh, hey.
You lied to us. You said you're going to give us the Jake. Is this the Jake exit? Is this still the Jake exit? Wow, man, this is the long game.
The Jakes-it does not mean
Jakes-it,
I must
sorry.
stay away. It just means I've rudely left.
No, I thought you were on 24-hour ban.
We just got the Genter, the Jake Enter. I don't know. I was trying. Sorry, guys.
That's a new thing. An unexpected entrance is a Genter. Oh, and it's got
But
gent
shit,
in it.
I'm so ADD. I want to respond to something Mel said, but I'm gonna forget. Fuck. Would you say, Mel, one more time?
Do that.
A lot. I said a lot.
OBS.
What was the general topic again? I forget what I finished on topic.
Gamergate. I was trying to finish that. I don't know.
Oh, yeah,
You're supposed to help me. This is why you can't cut me off.
Oh yeah, why it comes around every 10 years. It's because like there's different people
Oh,
who
yeah.
want to do it at different times. And then like the other people who are in it for like 3/4 of the time, well, they come back like the earliest, but then it takes a while for the hype that they generate to actually come into some notable popularity where the big names start coming back into it.
Well, that's also part of it, but I think also this inadvertent, but because of like the kind of gaming culture, because I think Gamergate is kind of coming back because there's all these like really big AAA SJW DA games coming out now that kind of were that started development 4 years ago when this is a little bit more popular, and now they're coming out and they're kind of doing really bad critically.
My only
and
counter
financially.
to this on the face of it is that like we see that this is just it's nonstop, and it kind of has been since Gamergate, where there's always something new for them to complain about. They complain about it years before the release, during the release, and after the release. And you know, it's the only thing that really changes is how many of them are actually complaining about it at any given time.
But I'd actually say, to me, and again, I'm not a gamer anymore. I kind of stopped when I started taking ADHD kids. It seems like to me they have more of an argument today because there's a lot of bad games out there. Like I've never played it, but this Justice League, what's it called, Suicide Squad game that came out. There's a lot of wokeism being in there. I don't know
Wait, wokeism doesn't mean bad.
I know. Let me fucking finish. I was just about to say that. I said it's not bad because it's woke, but it's a really bad game that is woke, and so it gets difficult.
Sure, it may sometimes get difficult until you become a part of the left that's like, oh yeah, I also hate when corporations appropriate leftist culture and try to make it into a trend.
I gotta tell you guys, I really appreciated having Torsha there to argue for the other side because, truth be told, I don't want to have the beliefs I do about the people I sincerely, and let me tell you this, from the bottom of my soul, sincerely hate. Really, like
you should talk to Tachyon then. I should network you with Tachyon. I really should, because he will at least get you to question how awful they were. But then I also suggest as a contra polarization, because he is one side of the polarization, to read Zoe Quinn's book, because then you realize what he's ultimately defending. And I just think that sheds important light on, either he's benevolently ambivalent or malignantly lying. So that's just my takeaway. But I think you should talk to him because you probably will be even more patient than I was with him.
Good. What's the guy's name again?
Tachyon Blue. Easiest way is it? I'll connect you guys on Twitter or on Discord because that's easiest for you, right?
Would they be down for a debate?
Probably. But you're gonna really want to know the history with this, like inside and out. Like know what his talking points on the history are. He's kind of like Rob Noor that way.
I can do a refresher. Oh, you mean for Jake, who's going to debate? That makes more sense. Yeah.
And refresher won't cut it. You need the lore, and he will send you so much information, more than you can ever deal with before a debate. You know what? Set the debate for 6 months later. That's how much information he'll send you.
That's the thing. I one of the things I like about this show we did together, and we've run a couple versions of, is that at least
you still have yet to run any of my versions.
Well, upon review, what I'm finding most interesting about it is the search for agreement.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Sure. The search for agreement.
But so far we've tried your version and we're not getting agreement because we have yet to try mine. So I think we have to flip flop
What's
a
your
bit.
version?
A little bit less orderly. I'm going to moderate by asking questions and holding people more to what they said, but making sure that like interjections are more allowable and there's less of like a time constraint. So it'll literally be like 10 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever, or just to kind of like just jump straight into it, so long as somebody has something to debate.
Can I mention one thing? Because I'm open to formats. I'm just wondering, because I noticed, Mel, I think you tend to like the more I think you like the more open format, and I think you're better at that. So I was wondering, is that skewing your feedback at all? I wonder.
So I'm only trying to show the benefits of. There's another way to do what Jake is doing, and that is to have a more active moderation style.
What I was saying earlier about finding agreement, I didn't mean amongst ourselves, though. I meant in an interesting thing that I've seen in this show so far, at least for me, the parts that are interesting.
The last episode was a circle jerk. That's an anomaly. We didn't get a lot of true opponents, okay?
Are when the people unexpectedly find agreement. And the three elements I think there that I would want to highlight in another version is only saying arguments you sincerely believe. None of this thing where we're like, well, I'll take this side for the sake of no. You got to sincerely believe it, and if that means you got to drop a topic, fine.
All I'm saying is like you can even call it the negative versions if you want, where for every one that you do, I get to do kind of like a counter positive, where I'm still trying to achieve the same goal as you, which is the ability to come to that conclusion because people are coming to more understanding, even though I'm more cynical of the results we had last time. I still want that, right? And to me, I think like we sometimes like, and this is no fault to you, Process. Literally every moderator does this because it's a very like nuanced thing, but you either cut off like back and forth, like, like you just stop it entirely when people cut each other off, or you allow it too much. And I think that there are exceptions to when you should stop people from cutting each other off, but there are also like there are rules for moderators to like say you have two sides, right? One side saying like I said this and you said this, and the other side said no, I didn't say that, you said this. That's where you come in and you try to suss that out, because that infinite disagreement can just go on forever, and it's not until the moderator kind of like does the Socratic method and walks them through it that at least one of them will come to the conclusion, maybe I need to change one of my points, or maybe there's a better way to argue this or something. And that's just my theory from 6 years of debate.
Definitely, I'm still figuring out. Sometimes I definitely am more hands off, where I might force the person to answer the question, but I won't be like, I won't walk them through the steps.
Well, my only criticism is that Jake's only thinking about it in terms of formatted and less formatted. There's another intersectional dimension of moderated and less moderated, and I'm trying to like get in the middle of those ultimately, if anything. And I think Jake's got like a good sense of how to format things interchangeably, and I've got a good sense of how to moderate things interchangeably.
Because I don't try different formats, but I think my ideal format at least the one I like to watch the most, is like as least moderation as possible. Like you really only have to jump in at like this.
Well, then you need the people to self-moderate, and that only the best debaters do that. And I'm not self-moderating right now. I cut you off, but I'm at least aware of what that is.
Because I usually only jump in if like they keep dodging the question. There's repeatedly talking over each other.
That is a good trait. I just don't think you do it consistently. Sometimes I wish you there. I find myself wishing you would do that more often than not, but I do admit that's just a preference, so I don't like try to.
Also, I'm curious. Do you feel like I'm not doing it for you? Because I might be biased. Because I think because you're a really strong debater.
Oh no, it's fine. And in fact, I after you muted me and I made the joke about the trans person, I was like, "There's no way he took me seriously," because I know why he's doing this, because I'm the stronger debater, and he's scared of me.
Well, I mean, not in this conversation, but sometimes, yeah. Well, if it's like three of us versus one person, or if I feel like the other.
Here's another example.
Losing in, I might moderate a little bit harsher against you, if that makes sense.
Here's another example of actually dog piles, where like I can handle dog piles, obviously, but you need to have. You've got to understand that at the end of the day, there's a dog pile of good faith debaters, which is very rare, and there's a dog pile of good faith debaters who are being screamed over by the people who are on the same team of them, but aren't making nearly as good points. And that's the person who the person being dogpiled has to respond the most to. So you've now made it harder for them to have a real discussion. And so, like, I'm fine with dog piles. I'm not actually really that intimidated by them. It gets my blood flowing, it gets my brain going. But the problem is like, when it's just the people screaming the dumbest shit, then I literally can't respond to the people who are saying something worth responding to. And that just ruins the whole point of any of this.
I think we're talking about the free will debate.
No, not anything in particular.
Okay.
This is just a common problem with dogpile debates where, yes, like you obviously I'm showing that I can stand on my own, but you also need to like filter out who's actually like at least a half decent debater, right? Someone who doesn't scream every time they disagree with me, who doesn't talk every time I start to talk. Those are the people who it's like, you're not going to have a show worth listening to so long as they keep doing that. And if I'm the person being dogpiled, no one is ever going to hear the other side.
Yeah, I definitely disagree. Have we had that issue yet? I know I think Dan and King were a little annoying.
John Galt. Sorry, I was talking about something in particular.
Okay, because I've not been on. I know it's also a little chaotic.
All I'm going to say, Jake, is if it happens to you, go on cam and just keep smiling and laughing like you do. And that's my biggest problem.
Thing. The issue I've got is that now both of you guys, you're having this very reasonable, very mature conversation, but your avatars are a fox that talks
and a prawn,
a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers prawn, and it just randomly occurs to me again that I'm like, one of the more fascinating conversations I've had as animated would be hilarious.
You're not delusional. This is real.
Well, I think we're at the point where we need more meta debate.
Sorry,
I'm
gonna forget this. Two ideas. We can all invade John Galt's channel together, and I've learned this a couple times. But what we can't do is like, because sometimes you'll get someone like on John Galt's where they just won't stop talking. I'll just keep going because I can just rant forever. So I'm like, I'm not gonna. I will keep going, and it will always stop before I.
Yes.
I just like, don't stop.
My problem is like. So I understand his audience, and I understand that I can only lose by trying to match the energies of someone who's just as annoying as I am.
I don't have that problem, I see.
Yeah, you're a little bit more charming than me. I'm a little bit more anti-charming because it's kind of like I'm sick of trans women who just try to kind of like please people. Like they'll act tough, but then they'll at the same time like dance around things that they feel like might make especially men mad, actually, but that's just a thing. And I'm not trying to throw any trans people under the bus, but I think the incentive is like, if I do tread this territory, then I have to go through another round of threats and stuff like that. So whereas like for me, I don't look at message requests on x.com. So
yeah, that site has gotten. That's something these days. That's one of the many things that bums me out about this. I love it too much to leave debating.
Bring torch back on.
But you're also like,
it does suck that it comes with a series of threats. Hey, buddy.
Princess, you notice I think I did it once when I was like really stoned and tired and forgot I wasn't doing it. But like I almost never plugged my Twitter on Grace and Ben's channel because that's exactly what I would be subjected to if after I acted strongly on there.
I never plugged my Twitter, but I only just started one because my for this shit. But I don't get any DMs yet.
Well, right. Like I'm telling you, there's like where trans people are like the internet's favorite punching bag, and I'm not being dramatic.
Oh yeah.
Like heaven forbid we have a wrong take because there's just so much more outrage.
What? Nah. That sucks. I'm sorry. You have my condolences. I don't have any idea why that phenomenon is, but it sucks.
And so Neve like has accused me of like doing the same things when I like try to like. I've had discussions with Ruby. She said she doesn't want people from Thorpe's community like, ruining her community. I interpreted that as like if someone's acting like a Thorpeite in your chat, maybe just like disincentivize that. She then said not to do it, so I was like, okay, whatever. But and shit, I forgot where I was going with this actually.
I'm gonna brag a little bit here. I think the Wicked community, the thing that is true about this group is that we make each other better. I think everybody's welcome, but we got to be on an upward trajectory. And it's most true of the community making the show host better, if I'm honest. But it extends. I hope we get some of those Thorpeites to start acting like, adults. I hope so.
Francis, what did you say to me that made me say the thing?
We're talking about X, and you're talking about how you got all shit curbing trans on Twitter. Was it about that?
Yeah, I don't remember where I was going with that then. Wow. Usually it at least comes back to me like 10 seconds later, but this one is just into the ether.
I know where you were going with it. You were going to find an excuse to compliment my suit.
Oh.
That's definitely what you're going to do. Yeah.
I don't know anything about suits.
How many do you have?
Nice material.
You got 2 eyes and a heart. No,
well, they're not like, so your tie doesn't have any decoration. Your suit doesn't have any decoration.
True.
And I'm like
going solid colors.
Where's some pinstripes? Yeah.
If it was like that kind of shade of purple, I'd be like super into that tie color. I'm just not a big red fan. Sorry.
First of all,
I think you should go.
I know the red fox thing makes it seem like I'm contradicting myself, but I promise you I'm not.
I think you should go Tucker Carlson and wear a bow tie.
First of all, a bow tie is going Charlie Chaplin, by God. Second of all,
no, go Charlie Chaplin. Yeah, go Charlie Chaplin. No, that's a Hitler stash if you think about it.
Oh, I wasn't gonna say it. Jeez, you said it outright.
You know what? I'm gonna go Matt Strackbind.
Like Whitest Kids You Know actually did a joke about Charlie Chaplin looking like Hitler. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. I know what you're talking about.
Does YouTube like? I'm so afraid to say like certain words. Like I don't.
Hitler's
even know.
fine. Hitler's fine. Don't say like delete the people who the Nazi went after.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody please quote that. Melanie saying Hitler's fine twice.
Did I? No, yeah, okay, fine. Fine.
I do not endorse a statement made by the Furby, okay?
Hey, I'm just saying what you can get away with TOS.
It's a Furby supremacist on panel.
Oh my God.
We're interviewing.
Yeah, no, wouldn't I be like making myself the first to be like on the chopping block? Like I'm the weirdest and like the most degenerate out of anybody who's ever on any panel because of this.
I like to think I've got a stealth kind of degeneracy.
Exactly.
Stealth?
Yeah.
Did you just change the colors?
Case in point.
Oh, you got me. Yeah, that is the shade of purple that is matching. That is really cool. And I think I've seen that and I did like it before because I think it even goes with like your blue color, since your blue color is a bit lighter than neutral.
I'll take it. Thank you.
Oh, I wish I had not looked this up. Apparently, there's a new Furby, and I hate it.
A new Furby.
I don't want to know. You're ruining my brand.
Like they brought it back in 2023 or something.
It has Bluetooth connectivity. Why? Nobody ever needed that.
There's an app with it on like every other device.
That's even creepier because now Furby knows what porn you're looking at.
Oh God. Oh,
It's now selling all your data. That's new.
Oh,
I almost
good.
thought, you know how they had the infrared sensor between the eyes? I thought about doing something with that and like making like an actual third eye. And
Oh yes.
the thing is, like, people don't have Furbies in their subconscious mind, like how they look, as much as they realize. Because when I went to draw it, I was like, I kind of remember how it looked like, but I don't anymore.
Oh,
Look at
there it
these
is.
monstrosities. This is ruining my childhood. What is this? These are not Furbies.
They're baby Yodas, okay?
They're Furblets.
Yeah, this looks like when Pokemon does a pre-evolution Pokemon.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, and that pisses me right off because Pichu is okay. Pichu is okay. He's well, it's the idea of like good things in small packages, like small batteries kind of deal. And
Yeah.
Pikachu would have been
Well, how
like
do
the
you-
older kind of batteries.
How do you feel about Raichu?
Love it.
He's Raichu. Like he's part of first gen. I can't really complain much.
Portia, do these words mean anything to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a video game that I played when I was younger, and it had to be in like 1999, maybe. And there was a bunch of animals, and they were pastel colors, and they raced. And it was like, I see it in my forefront of my brain, but I'm like, what the fuck was the name of this? And I remember, like, I could draw it, but it kind of looks like you.
Chat.
Longer torso, but does anybody know the game I'm talking
were they
about? I
racing,
know I don't have
cars?
not. They were racing each other. They were animals. So you hopped on an animal and they were passed
Is
out.
it Animal Crossing?
Was it? It was like a racing game, like a race car.
I
but
don't know.
different-
Super
different-
Mario Kart.
No.
Oh, wait, were you on a car or were you racing?
You were on an animal. You were on an animal.
I've
but
never
they-
heard of
they-
this.
They ran like
sure someone can look it up.
cars. They raced like cars. Yeah.
Wacky Wheels, perhaps.
No.
So the
No.
two games of two weird Pokemon games I played as a kid was Pokemon Pinball, which is exactly what it sounds like, and Pokemon Puzzle
It's
Challenge,
not Ultra Beast.
which is kind of like a mix between Puyo Puyo and Tetris.
What about Pokemon Snap? Never played that.
Oh yeah. No, like the only thing I played more than those two games was my grandpa. Okay, so this is the funny thing. I got my grandparents way into Pokemon and / Mario. My grandpa into Pokemon, my grandma / Mario. My grandpa completed the first games, the second games, and the third games through and through, like 100% maxing. And then with Pokemon Snap, he literally tried to get a perfect picture of Mew.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's how he was like an original speedrunner, even because he would reset his game. He reset his game and go through 100% again because he had all his little techniques and stuff like that for doing it. He didn't do any glitches, but you know that's a category.
That's amazing. You got a cool grandpa.
I got a lot of cool games as a kid as a result, and I inherited a lot of game consoles they probably otherwise wouldn't have bought me. And they'd be like, "We're not giving you this one." A year later, "Oh, we got a new game console. We got a spare. You want to take this one back with you?"
You were playing the long game. That's a brilliant move as a kid. Like,
I don't
get
even
my
think
family into my hobbies.
I think my grandpa first got into Pokemon Snap too, and it was because he wanted to show me how to play it, and he just found it fun. Because I was like 6, I was like way too young to actually even fully understand like the mechanics of that game. It was pretty simple for its time, but like I was still like, when you got into Mew, I didn't know what the fuck to do. I didn't know timings or anything like that.
But you were a gamer growing up. Jake, were you a gamer?
Yes.
Funnily enough,
I had a little experience. Go ahead, Mel. At least that one game you played as a kid.
yeah, not really in other realms. Like I played a lot of racing games, but they were more like rentals and Tony Hawk on the N64. But
All
like
the
the amount of
Pokemon
time, I spent way more time on Lego than video games.
Oh, nice.
I liked Legos growing up too.
Yeah, I probably got about 50 or 60 sets throughout my childhood. Just, you know, every single family member who I could get one to buy me every Christmas and birthday. Just every single one. Even
That's the brilliant
excuses
thing
to
about
get it
Lego.
for Easter. because sometimes they would have like Easter sets, right?
Hmm.
Or maybe
Lego. I don't remember that at all.
it was limited edition, so I always got like the catalogs and stuff, and so it was kind of like I was always like ahead of the curve with that. And we had the Lego store in one place I lived.
I wonder if there's ever been outrage over diversity or inclusion in Legos.
There has. I guarantee you.
And here's the problem,
I recall it.
Because there's an industry. Because there's an industry for outrage. I think that's our bigger problem here.
Legos are all made under the male gaze.
I mean, environmentalists. Sorry.
Nothing. Dumb joke. Go ahead.
Oh, it's kind of a joke.
I was trying to bring it back to the original topic.
Oh, there. Yeah, transgender building sets, boycott calls. There you go.
Oh, I bet that was the people on the right freaking out.
Haven't they always been transgender? You just pop off the hair.
Yeah, what was that?
That's literally all it is, too. The hair, or like sometimes the body pieces might.
They're all
have
interchangeable. Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
But I gotta say, like, they're pretty like inclusive with the thigh gap, like, and giving the men even the men a bit of a thigh gap.
Holy shit!
Wait, what are we talking about?
We're unnecessarily sexualizing Legos.
Oh,
welcome to hell.
Welcome to hell.
What were we talking before you left, Torcia, that you said you might want to continue? And then being delusional. Did you hear what I said about reality testing?
I only heard the last part of it. So I was like, I don't know how accurate reality testing would be with somebody with like anosognosia.
Right, but how common is that person?
Common, 50%.
Oh, well, admittedly, I don't know what you're talking about. But
what's ganosognosia?
If it's strong enough to inhibit reality testing, like majority of people have reality testing, otherwise we wouldn't be very functional.
Yeah, for sure. Reality testing. Sorry, my dog doesn't like the balloons in here. And I moved them, but now she's barking out there. Lau, come in here. You're fine. They're not going to get you. You're so sweet. It's okay. She's just like looking up.
Oh, yeah. Can you start off by answering what's your definition of delusional?
Me?
Yeah. Both of us.
Delusional.
Yeah.
So if something's like probably things added to like the environment that maybe aren't there. Paranoia, I feel like would be a part of it a little bit. Maybe not. Can you be delusional without paranoia? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I think you could. So I would say so like drifting from, I don't know what I would say for the definition, I guess. This dog.
Just, it's not bothering us, by the way.
I know, but I feel like a bad mom.
Oh, no, I hear you. I want you to know that you don't have to at least do it on our behalf.
I'm of the belief that
it's like ignoring a baby.
But delusional. If somebody is delusional, they have a break from reality. I guess that would be my definition. Fuck the other shit.
That's pretty good. Like, yeah, like their perception does not line up with reality. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm way more analytical about it. So there's the classical definition of someone who vocalizes or acts on delusion as if they're reality. But I think, that's not Torcia's definition. And so when we're talking about it as a spectrum,
that's pretty close.
A break from reality. I didn't do anything like acting on something.
Sure. But as a spectrum for me, it's being increasingly able to have delusional thoughts, delusional thinking, whether it's voluntary or not. With the most extreme cases being, what's it called? When you have intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts, yes. So when you have intrusive delusions, that's like your more extreme end. When someone like me can voluntarily put myself into like a fantasy land, because I'm a very fantasy-oriented thinker, that I still know it's not real, but that's still like kind of like in between on that spectrum, at least relatively speaking to me.
Yeah.
So that's
Just trying
why
to look at the actual definition. Keep going.
that's why reality testing matters for me, because like I said, most people can do reality testing, and there and so even if you I can even go a step further, say, like, let's say the grading of delusional thinkers is just a straight line down, so that's a linear function. That reality testing is so common that as a distribution curve, most people will have the ability to do reality testing, and the people who can't do any will be the rarest. And so that will make that straight line. Okay, how so?
They're not the rarest, but I guess we would have to distinguish if we're talking about like somebody with a delusional disorder, somebody with a psychotic disorder, because we know that delusions can be a part of that. Like, are we talking about depression with psychosis?
You know that I mean.
You know what I mean?
You know that I mean, like the rarest case within like the distribution of different possible reality testers, right? So
I don't know what that means.
So most people are like optimal reality testers. We know what reality is, and we're very good at testing for reality. The people who can't do that at all, statistically,
is that true?
Yes.
I feel like I could be wrong. I think we are constantly searching for like truth, but I think we're not like getting.
That's epistemology. When we're talking about reality testing,
I mean, even reality, or I guess.
Do you know? Like
if you think there's a ghost there, do you turn the light on to actually see if it's there? Do you think to do that sort of thing?
This is actually a very interesting discussion, because I was talking about this with a friend of mine, where I was like, how do you distinguish between somebody who sees the devil and somebody who is getting like devilish vibes and stuff? And it's like, well, one's personified and the other one is a vibe, right? And it's like, yeah, I guess it's easy when we talk about it that way. But if you've ever been with somebody who's like more on the spiritual side, or you've been with somebody who has hallucinations, it's like there's really no
story.
There's like no words for it, though. I was trying to explain this with Process, where I was like, there's language for something that I don't have the language for. I don't know. I'm a weird bitch.
One quick tangent, because
wait, but what was she, Melanie? What were you gonna say?
Oh, just with like the hallucination thing. Yeah, like I've babysat two people, particularly because one was an underage female and another was an overage male who was supplying the acid. So I was trying to make sure she was safe. But it was both their first time taking acid, and they doubled their dosage because they thought the cops were going to search them. So they just took everything they had left. So by the time we got back,
already paranoid.
So by the time we got back to the place, buddy, we were sitting around listening to some music. And this was kind of like my second time doing this, not around someone else. And so the girl wanted to play like some Beatles song, and it's like this really messed up Beatles song. And the guy was like, don't do that. And I didn't kind of recognize that as like the moment where like she really shouldn't do that, or he should leave before she does, because the way that he's asking her. But she did. And so he just starts howling and howling and howling. The girl leaves the room. I leave the room to make sure she's okay. She's okay. Go back into the doorway. And then I'm basically trapped there because he won't let me enter or leave. I basically can't change position at all because he'll freak out.
Yeah.
At one point I convinced him to turn the light on, but it took me forever to figure out he's seeing the devil, because he could not speak with words for the longest time. But he was just pointing at the corner and stuff. And it was actually like, so I don't know how real contact high is and stuff like that, because I didn't touch their skin or anything like that. But with like when he was pointing at that corner and screaming about it and stuff like that, like maybe it was just like psychosomatic, but I could see a shadow in that corner too. And I don't believe it was there. I think it was like the power of influence and stuff like that. But it was like
were you all like on LSD or whatever?
Not me.
Oh, okay. But yeah, for sure. I think the brain could do that. I feel like I see shit.
But even then, I knew like the devil wasn't really there. I was just more focused on keeping him calm until the freaking ambulance arrived, which took way too long. And that's what I did the entire time until it arrived, right? I stood in that doorway. And if you know how long it takes them to respond to that stuff, I'm just going to leave my complaint there, because I'm not trying to get any sympathy or anything. It's more of an interesting story.
I always feel bad. And then I think about the ones that go on a trip and never come back. And it makes me sad.
But those
Hopefully he's
people,
okay.
if it's not really like good to like this fact isn't good, but it might help you to know that it might make you feel better about people generally taking it, to know that like the people who have like breakdowns where they are schizophrenic afterwards, they were already predisposed to schizophrenia, and we're already going to have that breakdown from something else.
It's crazy
whether
when
even
you come
age.
from the same family, though. It doesn't happen to you, you know?
Yeah, especially because I'm schizoaffective, and I
Really?
wouldn't say, yeah, my mom, or sorry, I'm not I'm schizotypal, and my mom has schizoaffective.
Okay.
The caveat being she's diagnosed, and I just show 95% of the symptoms of schizotypal disorder in its mildest form. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of
Pretty
like life
common.
can be when it's not stressful, it can be pretty psychedelic for me. But
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
it can
You
also
know-
that can also be very intrusive. So
Yeah.
and I have
Yeah.
complex PTSD, which makes actual intrusive thoughts both psychedelic but also very off-putting, like almost
Yeah.
dissociative. But it's hard to describe, to be honest, because there's not a lot of language for it.
Yeah. There isn't. There really isn't. It fucks me up when I think about it.
But I was trying to say, like, when I take psychedelics, I can be a little bit unstable in my mood afterwards, but I don't like become more delusional. In fact, when I'm on psychedelics, I feel so in control. Like if
Really?
it's not even like I feel like like an actual shaman, where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
this is how I want to feel right now, and this is how I'm going to do it, and I do it.
I feel like there's something to say about those in families that have somebody with schizophrenia or schizoaffective. They did like a cross-cultural study where in every single family with one person that had it, there was somebody also in the family that had like schizotypal or something that was like a little odd, but not full-blown psychotic.
Yeah,
like,
schizotypal is the least,
The
it's
least.
the most mild form of the schizoid disorders.
Yeah. And like a lot of people or a lot of scientists were like, well, we wonder why this trait keeps getting passed down, the schizophrenic trait or whatever, like as if it's a bad thing, right? It's not always a bad thing, but this is just, they do that with science. And
It's
I guess
regressive.
yeah. But I guess like those that had schizotypal are arguably like our history's shamans. Like they were the ones that
Sapolsky says that, and my only problem with it though is that
he's not the only one. It's not the only one.
we I don't know how many like of these evaluations we've actually done on any shamans, and I just wish
Oh, for
to know
sure.
that
Yeah,
data
for sure.
first, because
But
it makes
I think
sense.
it's a beautiful, I think it's like a really beautiful thing that they frame it that way.
And at my
Especially-
most delusional, I felt like a shaman. Like literally, my purpose here was to
I
carry a
kinda love
message
it.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except
How
it's
do you
scary.
but how do you discern a prophet? How do you do that? I think I'm
The
writing a
scary
paper
side.
on this.
The scary side is that I become less self-critical, and the reality testing in terms of like, am I destroying my life right now, goes away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why you see a lot of people who have the Jesus complex. It's like, if you have the Jesus complex, why are you naked on your front lawn? Like
They
that,
can't
Jesus
help
never
it.
told people to. Oh, okay, well, I'm just saying.
That's a part of mania. I think
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like a cool thing. I just think the mind does wild things that
And
I
it's
wish.
cool. It's coolest when there's a creative output.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that we appear to have evolved different types of eccentricities that possibly have value to us, such as
Did we evolve them, or are they genetic drift? Sorry, Torsia knows what that means. I'm just being I'm being a bitch at this point. I know what you mean.
essentially evolution right there.
True.
It's they've stuck. We know they've been here for a long time.
Jake, actually genetic drift is not evolution because there's no natural selection involved. But okay, go off, Queen.
They've been around for a long time. So either they're of benefit to the society, or it doesn't hurt the society, or it doesn't hurt the society enough that they can't continue. I think it's
So-
interesting the potential that Torsia suggests that There are roles that these folks end up being naturally suited to, and it ends
Sure.
up being an advantage in some cases. I hope that's so. I hope
The
it's so.
neuroscientific explanation for why this keeps happening, and more so as humans evolve, is because not only do we have a more developed prefrontal cortex, but we're developing more feedback loops, which can control our more basal stuff, like stuff even in the brainstem, just from our thought patterns, which is unlike other animals because they hardly even have those thought patterns. And the ability to
clarify, unless it's going to be clarified.
So
in
you
the
know, like
second half.
mood, how like
What's
mood
the feedback loop?
You know how mood affects your thought patterns, and it's like certain parts of your brain will release or uptake serotonin, and that neurotransmitter that's involved, because it's being released, you can't really control it. You just feel sad until you don't feel sad anymore. You would need to like be in an entirely different environment. Our brains are developing more and more feedback loops to be like, well, you know what? I don't actually want to be sad right now. I want to feel happy. And so you think of something happy, and now you feel happy instead of just that current neurotransmitter state defining the functionality of that system.
Do we have research like having more schizophrenia than we used to, though?
Not necessarily, but I'm explaining how we might see like more diversity evolve within these things, even if we're not genetically evolving, because what we're evolving are more feedback loops, which can affect things that weren't necessarily working in both directions before.
But you don't have control of the feedback loops. They did a study on this that they found that there was a 7 second change in it was like they did some test where it was like,
if you're talking about like the amount of time that it takes things to happen, and
before
how
they became conscious, it had to do with the unconscious thing. So it was like we weren't aware that we were going to pick something or something like that. I'd have to brush up on it.
And
Sorry,
the way that this is actually, and you're right, like most neurotransmitter responses are just happening on a different length scale than thoughts, so they don't really interact that often in the brain even. But this is where these kind of pathways come into place, because the more I think about how I want to be happy, the more likely I am to stop being sad. And this is...
I think this is something that's unique with people who are more on the spectrum towards schizoaffective, schizophrenia, and schizotypal. I kind of think that they can access, which sounds bizarre, don't get me wrong.
It's actually completely in line with what I was saying, and now I feel like I'm kind of just bloviating. Because all this applies to me, so...
Can I ask you a question? Trisha, you said this before, but when does schizophrenia typically develop? Isn't it like later in life?
For men, it's typically around 18, 19, and for women, I think it can be like your late 20s, early 30s, those that are born male or female. But I think it's really a spectrum, because I've seen so many families, and I've seen the latest case of it I saw was 45, but it was drug induced.
And that's manifestation of symptoms. Can I also just let you know, Princess?
No, because I have more questions. Wait, it's not typically younger though, right?
It's typically 18, 19, and then 27, 28, 29.
Just because we brought this up a while ago, but I was thinking back how to, like, we're talking about like the evolutionary reasons for it, but I bet for a lot of reasons it didn't really impact our early ancestors, because usually you would kind of be born past your...
That's another side of it. This has always existed. Yes.
No, I just been silent for like 20 minutes. Please let me fucking talk.
Sorry.
Thank you. All right, I actually kind of forgot what I was going to say. But
I didn't mean to. But like I hear what you're saying, and that's what I was trying.
No. What was it?
Yeah, it makes sense why it wasn't a huge thing back then, because typically you would be born, have your kids, and then die before that really affect your life in a negative way. Whereas now we're living a lot longer, so it makes sense why it's affecting us in a more negative manner.
I think that I don't know if I agree with that.
So that is part of it. So one of the things that we can see even in children who are prone to these things is an early expression of transcription factors and metabolic issues, and that actually for people who are experts and who monitor children who are prone to this, that it can be easily detected at an early age when you know the signs. But the actual symptoms you're referring to are the psychotic breaks. And unfortunately, it's kind of hard to pin down when that's going to happen. But people were surviving past 18 for quite a while into history, and
Yeah, that's why I was like, I don't know if I agree with what
all of
he was
these
saying,
things
though.
are affected by kind of
Can I
like
explain, though?
we didn't
Can I
have
explain
good
what-
clarity of which was which, right? So we'd see
me
all
clarify.
breakdowns as being mental illness, but we wouldn't say.
Let me clarify, please. But when I bring it up, because natural selection doesn't care about negative things after you have kids, because natural selection will only weed out the negative stuff before that happens.
Yes, genetics don't work in reverse.
But we don't work that way as humans.
When I mentioned the
That's how-
transcription
that's how-
factor,
Kind of
natural-
sometimes,
Wait,
but
that's
it's
how
hard.
natural selection works for everything.
when I mentioned
you
the
said-
transcription factors, that would be something that could affect the outcomes of this of somebody,
let me
right?
clarify
People
now.
can carry
So-
the trait
and
but
let me add one
don't
more thing.
have the illness, though, or carry the stuff that makes you susceptible.
And it
You
is
know what I'm saying?
recessive,
That's fine.
as
It
Portia
would-
pointed out before.
But also, what I'm trying to say is, theoretically, there could be like a benefit in your before your 20s, where like there could be some like cognitive benefits to having that mindset.
Yeah,
But once
metabolically.
But once you have your kids, and now your health does. National selection does not care about your health anymore because you already did your job. You already had kids. You passed your genes on. So and then beyond that, like that's why we get horribly
Well,
old.
it does.
and die
It does
so
in a
bad,
way because your
we're not designed-
ability. It does in a way because your ability to raise your kids determines their outcomes and their ability to pass on their genes. So it's not direct,
Less
like
so
you're
in like
saying.
a village,
I
in like
agree.
an ancient village society, because we're probably more in a village back then. We weren't like nuclear families, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, and
Locott.
even
Shut
before
up.
their psychotic breaks,
Sorry.
people who are more prone to schizophrenic and schizoid disorders tend to have like more creativity and just like can I don't know what the technical term is for random actions. I don't know why I need to, but like they can just be more random without like it needing to be like in the
Maybe
in the
more
realm-
abstract.
Sure, yeah.
Abstract. Like, I feel like they make different connections. Sometimes.
So do people with Asperger's.
Right. But there's something about there's something about psychosis, psychotic disorders, and like positive symptoms like hallucination, something like adding to the environment.
That could even be metabolic because what we see
for
in like
sure.
blood and urine tests are like metabolic changes around those times as well.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the families I spoke to, it's just crazy how they like for a lot of families, the person had Crohn's disease or like ulcerative colitis, like bowel, stomach issues.
Yeah, actual hell.
Yeah, and then it manifested. I mean, it's hard to say that's why, but it was interesting to see how this ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, was like a repeating pattern that you just like don't really hear about on Google, which I'm not drawing correlations. It's just interesting. I don't know. I guess because some of your neurotransmitters are in the gut, you know.
There's a lot of strangely interconnected things. Like we're finding out that people that had stomach surgery have a higher rate of Parkinson's. It would not surprise me to find out that the two are related down the line.
Yeah, especially cortisol and serotonin are some of the two biggest intermediators. There are others like GABA and stuff like that work between the brain and the body, but they essentially regulate more than just your thoughts, right? They regulate your body temperature, metabolism, even activity levels, how much energy you feel, and your libido.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't associate serotonin with libido, but guess what? I feel
like a lot, maybe not. Yeah. I don't know. Feel good.
Well,
low.
When it's very low, right? Then oxytocin can't really get you to feel anything,
right?
Like it normally does. But when it's really high, then you're probably going to become too cerebral with like how you're feeling, and not be able to go into the transcendent state.
Interesting.
I'm sorry. Do you call arousal the transcendent state?
I call the state between transition from arousal to orgasm the transcendent state because you actually do need to go through significant mental shifts and cognitive shifts before it can happen.
I'm going to add that to my vocabulary. I won't use it as classy as you did, but it's added.
You should talk to Street Maxter. He'll tell you about life affirming.
And I don't mean like you transcend because it happens. I just mean like you go from one thought pattern to the next. Yeah.
I totally understand what you mean. It's a useful term. I won't
And
use
as
it in such a
Sapolsky would
way.
put it, Torch, I don't know if you remember, and I only remember this because I rewatched it recently, but he says you literally go from the parasympathetic to the sympathetic nervous system when that happens.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I love that you guys love Sapolsky. I thought I was the only nerd on the internet listening to this fella.
Well, that's why I also thought, like, you guys
Daddy.
have to know each other.
I
You need
love
the
him
Sapolsky
so
fan
much.
club, not featuring Princess, because he doesn't want to learn Sapolsky's ways.
I know, just not as much as yes, y'all do.
He's one of the most like brilliant, funny professors. He never says in a lecture. Like he just knows them. It's amazing how he does it. Like goals, like the way he speaks.
No, he does. He says all the time. What are you talking about?
I never have heard him say
Do you have a little girl crush on him?
Yeah, I love him.
He does. He does it by choice.
It's the way he
He's
talks
free will.
about female apes. It does it to me too. Don't worry.
It
Lordotic
reminds
reflex.
me of like
Boy crush for sure.
One of my childhood friends' parents.
Right.
Just like identical. And it's just interesting. I'm like, they gotta know each other. They don't.
Oh yeah. We need to have a round 2 free will debate. I think we could talk about particularly like how pragmatically it's handled and how like, because I think that was like something we did not agree upon or kind of discuss in detail last time, was how. Because I think a lot of people like assuming it kind of, you had to take like a black pill view if you're determinism. Well, I don't see it that way. I think
it's that definition. It's the definition of it. Maybe if we have it like on screen or something.
So just don't say that to the compatibilists in the room. That's all.
What do you
Ghosty
mean?
was there last time. They're compatibilists.
Compatibilists are like anti-black pill, right? Like we're saying that you can have.
I think compatibilism is a contradiction. To be honest with you.
Do you remember? Can I go over just really quickly the systemic argument of where we go from being deterministic to having free will? Because I think it's important.
We got to define, because Mel, love you.
It's doing it.
I understand. I understand.
You did not talk. You talked about not determinism for like 3 hours. So define.
I mean, you guys slipped up too. So take some responsibility.
Always.
Oh, there it is.
Always.
Okay, see, Torsha is more likely to succeed in this debate.
I was right the whole time.
So I'll define determinism as acting on forces that can be traced back to earlier forces, and such that nothing is determined by. And this is where I have to say free will. So I hope you don't hate my definition there.
I don't mind. It's just that you're probably going to want to narrow it.
Sure.
I'm like telling you right now because you're going to refute yourself. I can't even talk. Refute yourself with that definition. I'll take it. Benefits me, but
sure, I think it benefits me too. But
okay,
because I'm a compatibilist, right? Like I don't rely on it. I don't have to refute it directly.
I don't know. Are you? You told me you were determinist.
No, I didn't.
Last time, but you were arguing the other side. That's why I was confused. I was like, wait, what's going on?
Because I was one of 2 people by the end who could argue the other side.
Maybe you did say compatibilist at the end. I don't know why.
And the beginning.
I didn't hear it in the beginning. That's why I was confused. I was like, why are you making arguments for the other side? I was so confused.
So this is why I want to explain the systemic theory, because I think a lot of like the deterministic stuff happens before like the gray matter in our brain.
Okay.
So like the limbic system, very deterministic, obviously. Not a lot of things going to change when dopamine hits certain levels and stuff like that in certain areas. Outside of that, though, I think what the prefrontal cortex and the gray matter kind of represents is a point where that ordered signal, those ordered signals hit like become noise, not completely, but like of different frequencies. And what happens is our brain then synthesizes at that point. And this is actually how I understand imaginative thinking, where you can actually imagine things you've never seen before. Because the only way that would make sense is if you can take things you have seen before, blur some of the aspects of them, actually get rid of some of the signal, and then reform a new signal with synthesis. So that where we go from noise, which is a chaotic, random seeming signal with some kind of characteristics, because it could be pink. It's okay.
Keep going.
It could be noise, but within like a certain bandwidth. So pink noise, green noise, or blue noise. But the brain still synthesizes that to a new thought pattern. And that's kind of where we get brainwaves from, also, in my opinion.
Can I add just one thing myself before you jump in there? And I do
go ahead.
apologize.
No, you're good.
It's a meme.
I couldn't see it.
He sounded tired as hell.
You know, Jason. Bye.
I can't blame him. I didn't think we were going to get this deep into it because, Princess, you seem tired too. Your eyes look glassy as hell. Like,
I don't mind, but he did say he had to go at 2 a.m.
Right. And he even stayed for longer, so I feel bad for not asking him what he thinks.
No, but I could respond to that. But Torsha, did you want to?
That it's still, I mean, I guess there's still other factors influencing those neurons and influencing those brain waves that are beyond your control is, I guess, all I would say.
Can I jump one example? Because I got this from Sapolsky. I think he said the prefrontal cortex is like the most calorie taking part of the brain. So literally, depending on how you eat, like literally determines how that part of the brain works. So literally, part that's determining a lot of the signal, depending on how many calories you eat.
Sure, but do I think different things when I eat different things?
Yes.
It doesn't. Wait,
to some extent.
It doesn't matter though.
It kind of does, and the reason is that
it's
the signal, any given signal that enters the sensory system that's an input to what is a black box for my purposes. First has to be kind of turned into that noise, like I said, that represents a more common state for the brain, and that's our brain waves. And it's where that noise is actually what determines what we synthesize. But what we synthesize seems to be a lot more like internally directed than anything else. And I agree with you, Torsha, there are things that go on with the neurons and stuff like that. But when